But
I'm all right, thank you. I'm feeling very much worried about the miners at Impala Platinum.
yeah, man, you know what? And of course, we're still in limbo as to when they will be resuming operations there. But I think that's the furthest thing on their minds. I mean, losing 11 people. I mean, and on top of that, there's rumors that people have been complaining about this particular shaft, that there might be safety issues there. But of course, we'll wait until the investigations kind of shed more light on what is exactly happened there.
I would imagine with a piece of equipment like this, so a lift cage and the counterweight and all the rest, it would be mandatory to do maintenance inspections. They would be signed off, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
All of that record will be part of it.
Most definitely, Stephen. And of course, on the backdrop of that, it's day 2 of the Mining Safety Conference at Emperor's Palace here in Gauteng. Of course, you know that this happens in the backdrop of that mining accident at Impala Platinum. And it definitely is shining an even brighter spotlight on the issue of mining safety, Stephen.
Yeah, the timing is unbelievable.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the alleged instigators of the civil unrest of the July 2021, Mdumiseni Ntuli, will be sentenced by the Pietermaritzburg Regional Court today. He was found guilty of incitement to cause public violence. Let's find out what happens there. You'd know that that happened, I think, last month. He was found guilty last month. So let's find out what happens there, Stephen.
Yeah, no, important to know. And still no accountability for what happened during that time.
Most definitely. No, not at all. Not at all. And also, Stephen, in one of the longest running soaps on South African courts, the trial of rape-accused televangelist Timothy Omotoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zugiswa Sito continues at the Gqeberha High Court. Now, the case was postponed earlier this month due to the defense lawyer Peter Dobermans requesting a special entry questioning the Judge Emma Skuman's ruling that there's no evidence against former prosecutor in the case, that is Ngcabantelwa, influencing witnesses to commit perjury. So, yeah,
sure.
Twists and turns on this one. Anyway, Stephen, we'll also be looking at the ANC candidate nomination process. There have been concerns raised by some in the ANC National Working Committee regarding the low turnout of branches in the process, and some provincial structures having raised concern also that some provincial leaders are actually manipulating the process. So let's find out what happens there. Of course, we're going to elections lists. Right?
Yeah, and it's going to get more and more interesting as we get closer.
Messy and messy as we get closer to the date. And Stephen, finally, as we head into the festive season holidays, there are a number of challenges facing the Groblersberg border post between South Africa and Botswana outside Lephalale. Workers at the post say they are under-resourced, and some of the challenges include administrative matters, poor facilities, and what workers say is a lack of police and traffic police visibility in the area. So, yeah, going into... I always dread it when I see people heading out of the country during the festive season, because I know that it just takes forever and ever and ever, especially in this heat.
Yeah, and also some of these things surely can be done more quickly. I realize there's a lot of people, but some of these things, it doesn't have to be like this, I suppose, is my point.
Not at all, Stephen. So definitely that's what we'll be looking at today, Stephen.
Thank you very much indeed, Leander. We'll be listening, of course, on the radio 18 minutes after 6.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Your weather around the country now: Tshwane, partly cloudy, scattered showers, thundershowers 20 and 29. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 18 and 26. Vereeniging, partly cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 21 and 28. Bombela, cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 19 and 29. Polokwane, partly cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 20 and 32. Mahikeng, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 21 and 32. Vryburg, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 17 and 33. Mangaung, partly cloudy, isolated showers and thundershowers 17 and 31. Kimberley, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 21 and 32. Uppington, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 17 and 37. Cape Town, fine, a moderate to fresh southerly wind 16 and 26. George, cloudy, light morning rain, partly cloudy by the late morning, a moderate westerly wind 14 and 24. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, isolated showers and rain, fresh southwesterly wind 15 and 23. East London, partly cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southwesterly 16 and 23. eThekwini, cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers, a fresh to strong southwesterly wind 17 and 24. Richards Bay, cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers, a fresh to strong southwesterly wind 20 and 25. And Pietermaritzburg, cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 15 and 19.
SAFM invites you to tune in for our inaugural public lecture, Delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng.
This is an opportunity to use this privilege for the advancement of the cause of justice, because there is so much more that still needs to be done out there.
The theme for the lecture is Constitutionalism and Upholding the Rule of Law in South Africa, as corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic disposition. The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023, broadcasted live on SAFM 104 to 107 FM, streaming on Facebook, X and YouTube channels from 7 p.m. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Hallo Michelle, hope you're well. You know, I'm not very lucky for online internet shopping things after Uncle Danny got a second loan on his house to pay for some escort in Portugal's child to go to university. But listen, I'm addicted to this We Buy Cars auctions. Every day you can buy cars. My finger is jikkerig on the smells. I'm going to click anytime now because I want a fancy fast car. But my husband is making me so moeg. I'm sommer listen auction him. I nogal wonder how much I will get.
We Buy Cars, the best place to buy a car by far.
Manene namanenekazi.
Dove is not just gentle and moisturizing.
It took great care of the nation
During the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Dove rocks, just like the box.
Danko Unilever for your remarkable contribution to the momentous journey of global heroes.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
21 minutes after 6, good morning. In the Middle East, the 4-day truce, which started on Friday, has been formally extended. But there has been, at least as I understand it, one skirmish involving people from the Israeli Defense Force and members of Hamas. Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said all hostages should be released. Under the current deal, Hamas is releasing Israeli hostages on a day-by-day basis, while Israel is releasing Palestinian prisoners that's holding in its jails. Of course, this means, as you know, there's been huge damage in Gaza because of the Israeli bombardment there. A large number of Palestinians has been killed. 1,200 Israelis were killed during the Hamas attacks at the beginning of October. Shafiq Morton is a journalist who spent much time in Palestine. He joins us now. Shafiq, good morning and thanks for your time.
Morning, Stephen.
The obvious question, now that the truce has been extended by a couple of days, is it possible to make this peace permanent, or at least stop a return to the heavy fighting and the bombardment of Gaza that we saw?
Well, Stephen, I think that is the great hope at the moment. As we go into day 6 of a truce, or whatever a person might like to call it, we do know that the director of the CIA is in Doha and Qatar at the moment. Israeli intelligence officials are there. This is pretty much back-channeling at the moment. We do know that Blinken has to go to the Middle East very soon. So it's critical at the moment, and I think everybody is hoping that some kind of deal can be made to stop what the international community has been labeling as a genocide inside Gaza.
It seems Hamas wants the truce. Is Israel prepared to accept a longer-term peace or a longer-term ceasefire?
That, unfortunately, is an open question, because if you look at the rhetoric that's coming out from Israel, Benny Gantz just said yesterday, when this truce is over, we're going to carry on with the bombing. And Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a maniac, it seems, is determined to drive every single Palestinian in Gaza either into the Mediterranean Sea, under the ground, or into the sands of the Sinai. Unfortunately, one has to be as crude as that about what appears to be the ground zero plan, as it were, or the end game for people like Netanyahu. But it does seem at the moment, as we have to try and find out, is this rhetoric or is it not? Some people think it isn't, but I think to take the positives, at least we've had 6 days of something of a ceasefire, and Gazans of 1 million who are IDPs within the territory can at least have some moments of peace and try and collect themselves.
One of the key factors in all of this is what's driving Israeli public opinion. And what we've seen is that the families of the Israeli hostages taken by Hamas have put huge pressure on Israel, on the Israeli, the people in power, and the Israeli government, I should say, to try and basically get the Israeli hostages held by Hamas released. At some point, so this is one of these terrible, sort of quite a grisly thing, where it's hostages per day of peace. At some point, all of the hostages taken by Hamas will have been released. What happens then? And that's where I think things start to get very sticky. The internal politics inside Israel could change.
Well, in fact, you're putting your fingers on an important pulse. The internal politics of Israel at the moment are utterly chaotic. One can see that their political responses to the crisis has been pretty much ad hoc and not exactly sane at times. Israel at the moment is, I think, inside the reports that we're getting, is that the society is starting to divide, although the extreme right-wingers at the moment are in power in the Knesset. But if you look at the real fallout for the conflict for Israel, the Israeli central bank itself has agreed that so far the costs are $53 billion US. The shekel is shrinking against the US dollar. Inflation is hovering in the background. Ratings agencies are getting a bit edgy, and so on and so on. GDP could deteriorate or decrease by 10%. So there's a lot of consequences that Israel
Benzema following a stoppage time penalty decision as Kylian Mbappe converted from the spot. Victory in Paris would have put Newcastle's qualifications for the knockout stages of the Champions League in their own hands in the final home game to AC Milan. Now, after this bitter late blow, they must hope that Paris Saint-Germain slip up away to Borussia Dortmund. In the meantime, Celtic's European hopes ended in frustration as substitute Ciro Immobile's late double denied them what would have been a draw with Lazio following their 2-1 defeat. Rugby now, and South African fly half Cheslin Colby will play in Japan's League One this year after he was officially unveiled by Tokyo Suntory Sun Goliath alongside captain Sam Cane. That was in Tokyo. Colby expressing his excitement at joining the Japanese side, emphasizing the appeal of Japan's rugby culture and the competitive environment provided by Japan's Rugby League One.
So yeah, really excited for this new opportunity, and just can't wait to get out on the field and enjoy this lovely game again. Enjoy this club, the pride, the tradition, the history.
Moving to more rugby news now. 5 members of the Rugby World Cup winning Springbok squad in France were nominated for the coveted SA Rugby Men's Player of the Year award for 2023. With Ibn Etzebeth up to defend the title he won last season, Captain Siya Kolisi, Peter Steph du Toit, Frans Malherbe and Damien Willemse will all go up against Etzebeth after impressing during the rugby's, the Springboks' successful Rugby World Cup title defence. We also have Nadine Roos. She will defend her title as the Springbok Women's Player of the Year. She'll go up against former winners Aseza Hele, Babalwa Lacha, as well as Libby Janse van Rensburg and Reitz Mkari. Cricket news. Keegan Peterson struck his second half-century off the tour on day one of the second four-day match between the South Africa A-side and the West Indies A-side, and it took place at Buffalo Park in East London yesterday. The Proteas batter recorded 67 of 124 balls with 8 fours as SAA closed on 266 for 6. West Indies A struck early on after the break, with Joseph trapping SAA captain Neil Brunt leg before wicket for a 4. And finally, golf. Graham McDowell says he's feeling a bit excited and a bit of relief after joining Brooks Koepka's Smash team on the Live Golf Tour. McDowell joined Smash after his 2-year deal with the Cliques ended. The 2010 US Open winner hopes his 1-year contract with Koepka's team will rejuvenate his career after he finished 42nd in the 48-player tour in 2023. A wrap of your sport coming up with headlines on Sunrise. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you very much indeed. In the next half hour, we'll talk about President Cyril Ramaphosa's claim that we should stop bad-mouthing our country, that we should be more sort of patriotic, I suppose, is what he's saying. You're with SFM. It's stage 5 until 8 o'clock, then stage 6, just gone 6:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, Eskom has implemented Stage 5 rolling placards with effect from 5 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight. It says this is because it has insufficient generation capacity. ArcelorMittal South Africa has cited rising costs due to the country's energy crisis as one of the reasons for its plan to close its long steel operations in Vereeniging. 3,500 people are at risk of losing jobs as the company also complains about weak demand and persistent infrastructure problems. And it's not clear when the operations will resume at Shaft 11 of Impala Platinum Mine in Rustenburg in the northwest. The mine confirmed the suspension yesterday following the completion of a rescue operation after an incident in which 86 employees were involved. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, there are already noticeable delays in areas that are being load-shared through this morning's drive time. The West Rand area, lots of suburbs out there. Also around Park Ridge, Jim Forshire already queuing up towards Bayers Nordia. Lifestyle will be busy, and the run on Easterhoe down through towards Randburg will also be slow. Bryanston and Four Ways is offline. You can already see lots of delays, particularly along Winnie Mandela Corridor. Leslie Avenue coming out of the Four Ways area, very slow. Noordwijk in Midrands being load-shed, so Lever and Olifantsfontein, there's some early morning pressures there as well. Also parts of the Pretoria East region, Gasfontein and Menlands down. And again, already very slow in Gasfontein coming up to Solomon Mshlangu driving west into Rubenstein. It's all very slow getting there. You can also note the unusual backlogs and early backlogs on Durban's Higginson Highway. There's load shedding around the Chatsworth area, so queues from Bayview as you're lining up to get through Mobeni down towards the N2 highway. Truck crash around the Hilton area this morning. It's quite a backlog of traffic just leaving Pietermaritzburg as you come up over or after Town Hill and just approach that Hilton exit. That's where you're queuing into that scene. Cape Town Symphony Way leaving Delft towards Stellenbosch Arterial is very slow, and a crash on the side of the N1 inbound just after the R300. That's pushing traffic back towards Brighton Road at Kryfontein. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray McClark, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, it is US markets that are up for a second straight day. Investors are looking forward to consumer inflation figures that will be released later this week in the US. Investors are
allegedly by SANDF soldiers from the Mall of Africa. Now it appears, if I've understood this correctly, that the person in charge of that squad was also involved in the capture of a man accused of stealing R4 rifles from the military. Henny van Vuren is the director at Open Secrets. Henny, good morning.
Stephen, good morning to you. Good morning to the listeners.
So, remember the story around Frans Matipa, Hawks officer, killed while investigating the squad within the SANDF. You now have information about the theft of R4 rifles. Officials said these rifles must be recovered after they were stolen. What happened after that?
Yeah, indeed, Stephen. According to our sources that we have, and these are sources, at least one of whom was present when some of these crimes took place, and others who were able to confirm the details and knew of them at the time. The minister at that time of defense, Minister Noziviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, had apparently, we haven't been able to confirm this, said that those missing rifles, the rifles that were stolen, it was reported in the media, must be recovered by any means necessary. This is late 2019. And what our investigation has focused on, and based on the accounts from a range of sources, was the attempts by the military, and we should say the military then going into civilian territory to recover the stolen rifles. It appears that two members of the military who had been charged in court were possibly sold the rifles or handed them on to other individuals possibly involved in crime and other primarily involved in crime, and the military went out on the prowl basically to go and find those individuals who had procured those weapons. And so it was a process of locating, of identifying those individuals, and in one instance, as you point out, at least, of abducting somebody, kidnapping somebody, bringing them back to the Tabatwane military base, and according to the sources, torturing them in the military police bar to the point that they finally passed away.
This is the person known as Pamandla, according to your account. So he was then tortured in this bar. I mean, a bar, I presume, a place where they serve alcohol. And after that, he died.
That's correct. So Pamandla was picked up, and from, according to our sources, the special forces headed out of Tabatwane military base in a convoy. There were about 10 vehicles. There were a couple of 2 military police officers, possibly 1 or 2 defense intelligence officials. They were assisted, according to sources, again by military intelligence, or defense intelligence rather, that was directing them using surveillance technology to where Pamandla was. They found him eventually on the East Rand in Kempton Park, sitting in a McDonald's late at night, possibly at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. He was then kidnapped, abducted from that McDonald's, driven in this convoy back to Tabatwane military base, and as you say, driven to a military bar where he was tied to a chair, and the interrogators, and from what we understand, there were a group of them, but led by a man by the name of Colonel Penny Sunnyboy Wambi and a Lieutenant Colonel Doris Nechenze, led the brutal beating of this man called Pamandla. His body apparently eventually took on a green hue in the manner in which he was tortured. He denied knowing where the weapons were, and he wasn't able to assist them. And eventually at about 3 a.m. he could no longer see. He was placed in the backseat of a car, offered water. Pamandla said he'd like a beer. He took 1 sip from a Hansa, and according to the sources, at that point he died. And apparently what Wambi and the special forces, it's important to mention that Wambi is important because he's a member of the special forces unit, said that they would take his body and he would be buried at Speskop, which is a few kilometers away from Tabatwane, and it is the headquarters of special forces in Gauteng.
Sure. Has there been any response from the SANDF, from the ministers, from any of the people about this? I mean, I presume before you published this morning, you got in touch with them.
We certainly gave a whole range of different officials, everybody that we had named in the article, including primarily the SANDF itself, an opportunity to respond. We have not heard one word of response from them, Stephen, and I think this is very telling. I think the silence that we've seen around the story, if you like, and it is an unfolding story, and it's a story that is linked, we believe, to the murder of Frans Matipa, is one that has only been met with by silence by the Minister of Defence, by the Minister of Police and by the President and the Chief of the SANDF. And these are very, very serious crimes that we are talking about. I think what we are suggesting is the more we dig at the story, the more we are able to expose with the work of whistleblowers. These are brave public servants primarily who are willing to speak out. They paint a picture of criminality within the SANDF that certainly seems to have the protection of possibly top politicians and the top brass in the military. Certainly their silence suggests that they are protecting these individuals. And we make the argument that in any military, anywhere in the world, when people start, if you like, to taste blood, and that blood is of civilians and others, they continue with that practice. These aren't one-off events. This is a message to all politicians, to the media, to everybody in this country. There's a problem within our military, and we aren't doing something to address it, to arrest it, and to hold those to account for their crimes. And it's time that we started to name those.
There's supposed to be an investigation by a person called Defence Intelligence Brigadier General John Moorhouse. What happened to that?
So we've learned of an investigation, as you say, by an internal investigation. Whistleblowers within the military had apparently spoken out about widespread corruption, not only linked to this particular incident, but possibly to torture, but more broadly to PPE corruption during COVID, all manner of abuse. And that information was brought to the attention of the head of military police, Rear Admiral Mapoto. Nothing was done about it. Eventually, following repeated complaints, including to the chief of the SANDF, a board of inquiry. And so the military really acts like a closed shop. They appointed an internal board of inquiry led by Brigadier Moorhouse, which sat and heard what we believe is information from dozens of witnesses. And we believe that report was then handed to the chief of the SANDF, at least, possibly the minister as well, some 6 months ago, and has been gathering dust since then. And we're asking the question, why has this Moorhouse Board of Inquiry report not been made public? Could it help shine a light on widespread abuse within the military? And I think we, as the public, have every right to know what's within that report and what the chief of the SANDF and the minister plan to do with its contents to hold those named and implicated to account.
Henny, thank you very much indeed. Henny van Vuren is the Director of Open Secrets. We are, of course, trying to get in touch with the SANDF this morning to hear from them and to give them a right of reply to the claims made by Open Secrets this morning. 11 minutes now to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Mark on the line from Durban. Mark, hi. The issue of number plates in KZN.
Yes, thanks, Stephen. On a slightly lighter note from the previous issue, I'm just wondering whether this new system is going to change the policing around Durban. I mean, I can go out driving out for a short drive, and I will come across 3 or 4 or 5 cars without any registration whatsoever. And it's been going on and on and on. And what I can say is there's absolutely no policing whatsoever. And one can, of course, you can extend that kind of registration anarchy into all other aspects of our roads here. People speeding, jumping red lights, and so on. So all I'm saying is that I'm just wondering if the new order will bring a new order.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think so many people, I get very frustrated when I see people without number plates on the roads. I'm sure you do too, because it suggests to me that you're preparing to break the law. Grootes On Maluti Apafong, hi, mining safety, this terrible disaster in Impala Platinum.
Goeiemorgen, meneer Steven. Hoe gaan dit, meneer Steven?
I'm very well, thanks, Grootes, yeah.
Yeah, allow me to send the condolences to the family of the employees of Implat, but I'm accounting the management of Implat why they didn't listen to the employees when they were complaining about the maintenance of the shaft. I blame them. Even the company that was doing a maintenance at the mine, I also blame them, and that company should be exposed. Then we know that that company is owned by the white people or the black people should be exposed to that company. Because in the main aim, it was to kill the black people. Because if it was not, they were supposed to maintain the shaft belt.
Well, Yeah, Khotso, I mean, look, let's wait for the investigation and see what happens. It's quite a big claim to make that this was, that things were neglected and all the rest. But there'll be an investigation. That investigation will be by the mining company, but also there'll be an investigation by the department. And we'll actually sort of put some of that to the department and just hear how they go about it in about half an hour from now. 9 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're driving Pretoria East, some load shedding around the Garsfontein and Menlyn areas. It's already noticeably very slow on routes like Solomon, Mashlangu into Rubenstein and heading out along Garsfontein. Both routes much heavier than what you'd normally expect. Also, the Midrand part of Noordwijk and Countryview being load shedding. You can see traffic building all around the Lever and Olifantsfontein Junction. Also, Bryanston and Four Ways for motorists in northern parts of Joburg. So you've got traffic backing on Witkoppen heading out through Montecasino. You've also got delays from Lone Hill on the main road. That looks very heavy through Witkoppen down to Robin Road and Cedar Road with some load shedding and just numerous traffic light folds coming in from Dainfern, already very heavy as well. Crossing to Durban, the M7 going into Pinetown, there's a very heavy backlog from Hans-Detman Highway up towards St John's Avenue Bridge. The Higginson Highway coming out of Chatsworth, terrible this morning, queuing from Bayview all the way down through Mobani and on towards the N2. That is also load shedding related. Driving into Cape Town, a crash on the N1 inbound at Old Oak Road a little bit earlier this morning. That's pushing traffic back towards the Brighton Road exit. Crash on the N7 north at the N1. So motorists heading out to Goodwood stuck in some extra traffic pressure on top of the pressures that you face every morning towards Bosmansdam Road. That little crash already pushing it back towards Franz Conradi Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Rand Water is concerned about the significant increase of water consumption in its areas of supply. The increase in water consumption is putting severe strain on Rand Water's distribution network. To save water, please do not wash your cars with hose pipes. Use buckets. Water your garden with sprinklers between sunset and sunrise. Do not wash your pavements with hose pipes. Use brooms. Repair your leaking taps. Cover your swimming pools to avoid quick evaporation. Shower instead of bathing in a tub.
This message is sponsored by Rand Water in partnership with City of Joburg, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Tshwane.
Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
# Rugby Drama Galore.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide for its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Ajira Sali. The closing date for written submissions is Friday, the 15th of December 2023 at 4:30.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, 6 minutes now to 7. Emerged that over the weekend, President Cyril Ramaphosa said during a community meeting that South Africans, we must stop bad-mouthing our country. He said we should be more like the Chinese, that we need to be patriotic. He said that the criticism South Africa gets from South Africans, or if you like, the way we criticize what is happening, is severely lopsided, and we should never badmouth our country. Seisman Motlong is a political analyst. He joins us now. Seisman, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Stephen, and greetings to the SAFM listeners.
I'm going to ask you to speak as loudly as you can, please. How do you think this kind of... Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. This kind of message that we should be sort of less critical, that we should not badmouth our country, how do you think it's going to be received by voters?
No, I think they will receive it still with skepticism, because anyone who would be listening to that or hearing him would be wondering why people are really bad-mouthing the country. And if you were to fix the reasons for which they badmouth the country, that could stop this aspect of a negative sentiment. On the very critical aspect is to see why people in China do not badmouth the country, because it is not necessarily a voluntary thing. It's either a domineering state or there's a deep civic culture that has been embedded over thousands of years to really create a people that are compliant in that country. So it is a complicated program that he's asking for when government is not making an effort to implement it or to encourage that culture.
I get the sense, and I realize that SAFM and talk radio is not, and English language talk radio is not the whole country. I mean, it's a small percentage of it. But from people who phone into us, and if you listen to our voice notes, people are really, I think they feel that their lives, our lives, have got worse over the last few years, last 5 years maybe. People are really worried about the future. They're worried about their future. They're worried about their children's future. There's also the sense that I get time and time again is a sense of anger at government, often anger at the ANC. Do you think President Ramaphosa understands that?
It seems to be someone who creates the impression that he doesn't understand. This is why there is that a joke about him that whenever he sees anything going wrong in the country, he's always shocked. Oh, I'm shocked to see this. I'm shocked to hear this. It creates a government, or even himself, yes, as head of government, who's distant and who's unsympathetic to the appeals of the people. Like what he's saying, to say, don't complain, but really not appreciating the deteriorating socioeconomic conditions. Because here he is proposing, don't speak as if maladministration is not happening, says don't complain as though there is no corruption happening. And these are the critical material elements that make people to complain at first. He's not responding to those issues and saying what government is intending to do or is actually doing to help to facilitate a positive climate in the country.
Do you think the comments are going to stop people being so critical of his government? I mean, it's a sort of national sport, and I mean, perhaps unfairly for him, perhaps. But I mean, do you think it's going to stop people being so critical and so publicly critical? It's become almost, I mean, it's unfortunate. I think it's horrible, but it's become almost what we South Africans do.
Definitely, people will not stop speaking, because when you look at this concept of patriotism he's asking for, its purpose is to justify and to maintain political rule. But when people start speaking, it means the political rule is not really coherent. You are not winning support among your masses. Then the other aspect is a sense of pride. You are patriotic because you are proud of your country. Some people are willing to sacrifice their lives for their country. That's why others go into military. Like when you see how America has glorified itself, it's hyper glorified patriotism, making people to enjoy going to the military and die abroad for the country. That sense of pride is not there in South Africa. If you ask a general person anywhere, randomly, when last did you feel proud of being South African? That question is very pertinent for us to understand how patriotic people are. And my guess is that you will not find 5 in 10 who say in the last week I felt proud being South African. So the situation is dire, as you say. People are worried about their existential realities. And this is the government who speaks to say, no, cheer up, but really not responding to the material conditions.
Seisman Mutlung, thank you very much indeed, political analyst there. Do appreciate the time. We've just, Mdun Stanza just got off the phone from the SANDF just in response to the conversation we had with Henny van Vuren. They've told us they will not be responding to the claims made by Open Secrets this morning. So we have spoken to them. They've said there'll be no response, and I presume at least today, but I don't know if there'll be a response for some time, if at all, to this. So we have spoken to them, and that's been what they've said. We'll focus obviously on what happened at Impala Platinum. That's the big focus in the next half hour. You with SAFM leading the conversation at 7 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Eskom intensifies load shedding and Implats suspends operations following deadly accident. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. Eskom has implemented stage 5 rolling blackouts with effect from 5 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight. It says this is because it has insufficient generation capacity. The power utility also says it needs further emergency reserves. Spokesperson Daphne Mukwena says they will rotate stages 5 and 6 for 4 days.
This pattern of implementing stage 5 load shedding from 5 a.m. until 8 p.m. and stage 6 load shedding from 8 p.m. until 5 a.m. will be repeated daily until Saturday morning.
ArcelorMittal South Africa has cited rising costs due to the country's energy crisis as one of the reasons for its plans to close its long steel operations in Vereeniging. 3,500 people are at risk of losing jobs as the company also complains about weak demand and persistent infrastructure problems. The company's shares have tumbled nearly 14% after the announcement. ArcelorMittal's long steel unit produces fencing material, rail, rods and bars used in the construction, mining and manufacturing sectors. It's not clear when operations will resume at Shaft 11 of Impala Platinum in Rustenburg in the northwest. The mine confirmed the suspension yesterday following the completion of a rescue operation after an incident in which 86 employees were involved. 11 of them died while 75 others were injured. The injured, including 10 who are in a critical condition, have been taken to hospitals around the area. Implat's CEO Nico Müller addressed the media yesterday.
There were 86 employees that were affected in total. Of them, everyone, as the Minister said, has been brought to surface. 75 of those employees have been admitted to hospital, and of them, there are 10 that are in critical care. One employee has been airlifted to Mill Park, and the other 9 are in ICUs in regional hospitals in the area.
A fourth man accused of killing a security guard and wounding others in a cash and transit heist has appeared in the Moroke Magistrates Court outside Bakersford in Limpopo. All the 4 accused robbers will appear in court again on the 6th next month for a bail application. They are also accused of stealing an undisclosed amount of money on the Bulkwane Bakersford Road at the weekend. The accused have been remanded in custody. 2 learners have been arrested for allegedly stabbing their schoolmate to death in Bilabila, Limpopo. Reports say the deceased was apparently being bullied. Police say the 2 groups of boys at the high school started fighting after a heated argument. Police spokesperson Hlulani Mashaba has identified the deceased as 18-year-old Putego Munaring.
The Provincial Commissioner of SAPS in Limpopo, Lieutenant General Thembi Hadebe, said that the police have noted a trend of bullying and embedded culture of violence in schools recently. She also added that bullying and violence should be reported as soon as it occurs to the parents, teachers and police because it is unacceptable and should not be tolerated at all.
And finally, U.S. President Joe Biden has warned that a continuation of the conflict in Gaza would only play into Hamas ideology. Biden's comments didn't directly mention Israel and appear to be a softening of the U.S. stance so far on Israel-Hamas war. The BBC's Tracy Becham reports.
Mr. Biden's comments were made on his personal account on X, not his presidential one. He said to continue down the path of terror, killing and war is to give Hamas what they seek. The tone seems to be in stark contrast to official U.S. statements on Israel's war in Gaza. The White House has previously stated that a permanent ceasefire in the Palestinian territory would only serve to strengthen Hamas. Mr. Biden's remarks come as talks continue in Qatar between intelligence chiefs from the U.S., Israel and Egypt to try to further extend the current 6-day truce.
Recapping your top story, Eskom has implemented stage 5 rolling blackouts with effect from 5 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight. It says this is because it has insufficient generation capacity. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 7:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is your cash flow tighter than bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1? Navigate the financial gridlock by asking Outsurance to save your money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash. If they can't, beat your premium. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, soccer, 3 Banyana players in the race for the CAF Player of the Year award. And in golf, Tiger Woods, the 15-time major champion, says he'll play until he can no longer win. Let's find out more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Big traffic out in Mpumalanga this morning. It's on the N4. There's been a big crash scene just on the western side of Milan. So if you're driving that side, there are some stop-go controls in place and quite a backlog of traffic to work through. If you're trying to get through to sort of Kruger Park or get through to Lebombo border or trying to get out of that area back towards Mbombela, there's some heavy traffic queuing there, both sides. The N12 at R24 route into Galulis, coming in from the Ekurhuleni side, very busy. Load shedding around the Bryanston and Four Ways areas together. So Rooside Vickhoppen, William Mandela, the main road in from Lone Hill, it's all very slow going. Irene's also out as well, so extra delays in that central Irene area. M7 into Pine Town, that's a heavy queue, very heavy this morning. Traffic queuing from Hunstedman Highway all the way through to the St John's Avenue Bridge area. And Cape Town, a crash on the N1 inbound at Old Oak Road. Traffic is starting to move through from Kryfontein, but it is slow. And there's also been a crash on the N7 north at the N1 highway, so extra pressure coming out of Goodwood this morning as you line up on Jakes Covell towards Bosmansdam Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 7, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Obviously a big focus on mining in just a moment. We put together 3 or 4 voices just to sort of get as much as we can about what happened, about what happens next. There was a big press conference yesterday with the mining company, with the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, other people as well. And we'll just sort of find out, where we are with mining safety. And you mustn't forget what mining is. You're asking someone to go 3-4 kilometers underground and dig stuff out of the earth. And I mean, sometimes there's a big argument, a big sort of debate rather, about whether a mine should mechanize and employ fewer people underground. That would make sense, but people want jobs too. So there's a lot of tension in that argument. Do you remember the conversation we did yesterday with the Commissioner of Correctional Services? And we spoke to him about the cell phones in prisons. 20,000 are found confiscated in just 6 months. I thought it was a big conversation. We thought we'd take that further in your mediated conversation this morning. So we'll do that from 8:30. I spoke yesterday briefly to an expert on this. He had all sorts of things to say. I'm looking forward to hearing from Professor Lucas Muntung later on this. And then just a reminder, of course, the big SAFM, the inaugural lecture tonight, the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng. I understand actually that the hall may now be full, and that you will be able to hear it broadcast live here. We'll be on social media as well. So don't forget that from 7 o'clock this evening, 9 after 7.
Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
# Rugby Drama Galore. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You see, change happens and it improves our lives. Change is good. It opens doors to new horizons and leads to a more informed tomorrow. Being in the know is no longer for the selected few. Information is for all of us to enjoy, whenever, wherever. Sunday World, putting the latest stories, sports results, exclusive video content, and celebrity news at your fingertips. To stay informed, download the Sunday World app today. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Sunday is just the start.
SAFM invites you to tune in for our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng.
This is an opportunity to use this privilege for the advancement of the cause of justice, because there is so much more that still needs to be done out there.
The theme for the lecture is Constitutionalism and Upholding the Rule of Law in South Africa, as corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic disposition. The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023. Broadcasted live on SAFM 104 to 107 FM. Streaming on Facebook, X and YouTube channels from 7 p.m.
SAFM leading the conversation. At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
11 after 7, good morning. Well, more details now emerging about how the accident that claimed 11 lives and hurt 85 people at the Impala Platinum Mine in Rustenburg actually happened. There are various reports this morning, but from what I can tell, it appears workers were returning in a lift cage to the surface. The lift cage, I think, has space for around 145 people. There was fewer than 100 within it, around 80 people, I think. The cage also has 3 levels. So think of a lift carrying 3 groups of people. As the cage was moving up, it suddenly started to fall, and a safety mechanism that's supposed to stop it from falling failed. The counterweight to the lift, every lift will have a counterweight, that got snagged somehow. As a result, the lift cage fell around 160 meters. There's steel bars at the bottom, and it hit the bars. So it went down 160 meters and stopped very suddenly. You would imagine, obviously, if you're in a lift, you get pushed to the roof. So the people in the lift were in a box that was moving down quickly. It stops. The people in the bottom section of the lift cage were obviously the ones who suffered the most, and I presume where most of the 11 people died. That's my understanding of how it actually happened. There'll be a full investigation. There'll be a lot more information that'll come through. We start your coverage this morning with the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Council South Africa, Mzila Mthenjane. Mzila, good morning, and I imagine, like everybody, you're thinking of the families of those who died this morning.
Good morning, Stephen. And indeed, we are really grieving the loss of so many people in such a freak accident, really, in the mining industry, and condolences to them.
We know mining is dangerous, and an incident like this reminds us of that. What has the industry done to improve safety on our mines?
The effort at improving safety is something that we've been investing in for the past 15 to 20 years. And specifically when it comes to fatalities, we've seen fatalities come down from the region of about 1,000 in the 80s. And the most recent record achievement was in 2022 when we reached below 50. Now, any loss of life is if it can be avoided, it must be. So that improvement, I think, is commendable, and we acknowledge that there's still a lot of work to be done. And the focus has largely been on falls of ground. But when incidents like these happen, it does require one to take a step back and reflect. And as you make the point that, mining is dangerous, and we can't afford not to remain vigilant.
Is mining still more dangerous in South Africa than many other countries?
I think you have to. It would not be a fair comparison to just make a blanket statement like that. I think what we have to look at is the different types of mining, because even with surface mining, or what is called open cast mining, it does have its dangers. You have large machinery. You could have with an open cast a fall of the sidewall, a huge landslide. So, looking at the whole value chain of mining, it does offer its share of dangers, which all have to be, which we all have to be mindful of. From a South African perspective, I think in terms of this accident, South Africa is predominantly hard rock, deep underground mining in terms of our gold and platinum mining. The technology for accessing these resources, it is amongst the most advanced and has been exported to other countries as well. And in fact, as far as this shaft accident is concerned, as I called it earlier, as a freak accident. The only other one of this magnitude, you may recall the Vaal Reefs disaster. And the shafts are usually very technical, deep engineering, and very safe with large safety factors. So I think, as you said, let's really wait and see what the investigation finds out about how this really came to be.
So what you can do, I suppose, is more mechanization. You'd use more machines, fewer workers. Is it possible to reduce the number of people who have to go underground?
So, I think future mines are certainly going to be much more mechanized. And we're beginning to see that with a lot of the technology that is developing. The AI, remote working is all possible. And mechanization and automation of mines is possible to the extent that it can be retrofitted. We've seen mines do that, but it also has to be managed responsibly, considering socio-economic factors. In South Africa, you mentioned the issue of employment is an important one. What I've experienced is that where technology is introduced, in the first instance, it has to be introduced to enhance the ability of people to work and hence improving productivity. To a degree, it also reduces the number of people that will be exposed to dangerous places underground. And over time, I think we should anticipate that there should be much less or no people working underground, but mines still continue to operate. But those machines are operated from surface.
The argument that's going to come from people representing mine workers, Mzila, and I think many people are going to feel, and this is the age-old question around mining. Do mines put profit before people? Sometimes we've seen, particularly in the platinum sector, coming out of the pandemic, there were huge profits. I realize the situation has changed, but there were huge profits, and the question will always be put, are you putting profits before protecting miners? What would your response be to that?
I think that's an important question we've always got to bear in mind to keep ourselves in check. At the time of those profits in the platinum sector, and we're probably going to see that in the gold sector as the gold price moves up. It was at a time of high prices. But when you look at the stats, it was also at a time when safety was improving. And it is possible to make profits as well as, have a safe environment. And in fact, you'll find that where there's high profit, it's because those mines are actually working even safer. And to be able to achieve that, you need working relationships in a tripartite arrangement amongst government in terms of the DMRE, labor, and the company, and focusing on the right issues. And what we've done as an industry recently is really made sure that safety and health is a leadership issue, not only from the CEO and the board, but everyone takes leadership role. Everyone who works in the mine takes a leadership role and accountability as far as safety is concerned for themselves and for their colleagues.
We know that there's a lot of economic pressure on mines. Talk again of retrenchments. When mines are battling to make a profit, is it tempting to cut corners on safety?
No, absolutely not. That is the one area where we don't cut corners, and I think it's an expression that actually doesn't come into our vocabulary, cutting corners. I think the need to adjust to a market downturn is important, and usually the cutting is something that takes time, and it has to be well considered. It is not random. And it is also important to bear in mind the mental and social impact of job cuts, and that we're aware that can have an influence on safety. And it's something which the Chief Inspector of Mines has also made sure that he brings to our attention, that as the industry is going through this tough period, we need to be much more vigilant and considerate of the impact it could have on safety.
Mzila Mthenjane, thank you. CEO of the Minerals Council South Africa, representing the mining industry. 19 minutes after 7 with SAFM. Makosonke Buthelezi is the spokesperson for the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. Makosonke, good morning and thank you for your time. Do you believe at this stage that the mining industry has done enough to make mining as safe as it can be in South Africa?
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to our listeners. As Mzila has already indicated, yes, I think through collaborative effort between government, employers and labor, we've all ensured that mining is safe in South Africa. If you consider that, if you look at the number of fatalities that we've had, if you look at the 90s and the 80s, people were dying in huge numbers. Now, although they are still dying, but they are below 50, our aim is to have zero harm in the industry. So I think, yes, the collaborative efforts have paid well in terms of making sure that safe is a priority in the mining industry.
Impala Platinum, now there's going to be a series of investigations. I presume Impala Platinum will do their own investigation. You conduct an investigation. Is that through the Chief Inspector of Mines? Is that a sort of independent investigation? It's not you, it's the Chief Inspector of Mines. Have I understood that correctly?
Definitely, we are required to conduct an investigation as the MRE through the Chief Inspector of Mines, and that investigation, depending on the recommendation and outcomes, it may be converted into an inquiry. So Mine Health and Safety Act requires us to conduct an investigation in a disaster like this one.
Okay, and that's not the ministry that does it. I mean, it's an aspect of the ministry, but it's properly independent. So, and do you give them a timetable? I mean, I know that the miners who were hurt first need to heal. You'll need time to set it up and all the rest. But I'm presuming, we can't wait forever. It'll be a few months.
Definitely. The Inspector of Mine indicated yesterday that it could take up to 3 months, but lesser than that. So that is the maximum time we're looking at, but it could be lesser than 3 months. So that's what we're looking at.
Makasonke, I realize that you're a spokesperson for the department, and I don't know if you have any history in mining. I have no history in mining. We all know your minister has a history in mining. But I would imagine that equipment has to be maintained, and there'll be a register of the maintenance and things like that. And all of that would be looked at in this investigation.
Oh, definitely. We're going to go into that because we have to go to the root of the cause of this mining disaster. Is it because the equipment was not properly maintained, or is it because the quality of the equipment wasn't good enough? So those are the things that we'll be looking at as the department.
Makasonke Buthelezi, thank you, spokesperson for the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, 22 minutes after 7. Well, let's get a view now from the Junior Mining Council. They represent smaller mining companies in the sector. Their founding president is Fred Arendse. Fred, good morning to you, and thank you for your time today. We know that there are huge challenges to mining financially, but when it comes to safety, do you believe mines are doing enough at this stage to keep workers safe? All right, it seems, unfortunately, that line has just dropped on us. We'll speak to Fred Arendse in a moment and just try and continue that conversation. In fact, I think he's with us now. Fred Arendse, good morning. Sorry about that. You're the founding president of the Junior Mining Council. You're on SAFM. Do you believe even small mining companies are doing enough to keep workers safe?
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners. I really think so. Small and big. I mean, mining is a very, very dangerous business, and I really believe all facets of mining, small, big, and everybody's doing the bit to keep the mining operations safe.
We see huge challenges to mining at the moment. There's clearly an accident that may have been preventable. We don't know yet. There'll be an investigation, but it was an accident at a big mine. Do small mines have the necessary resources to operate safely and manage their safety equipment? Do they find it actually harder to do than big mines at all?
It's a challenge. Obviously, smaller mining companies don't have the same, access to funding and resources. But safety, as any other big mine, safety is paramount. Safety is most important, for any mining business, big or small. So yes, it's a challenge, but our experience, suggests that our members and people that we know, everybody's doing their best to keep their mining operations safe and sending their people home in a safe way.
The other problem you have is illegal miners, and this was an accident, but illegal miners are also a problem, particularly, I imagine, for smaller companies.
Yes, Stephen. I mean, it's becoming a national problem. It's almost like load shedding or logistical challenges. So it does affect, your small operations because you need a huge contingent of security, just to keep, the scale of illegal miners at bay. So it's a huge challenge, and it's an everyday, challenge. But it's not just a challenge for smaller mining companies, but also for the communities that's affected by this illegal mining. And we've been encouraged by what government suggests, but we do have concerns when it comes to the actual implementation. But it's but this challenge has to be tackled not just by one singular approach, but doing it in collaboration with all stakeholders to root out the illegal mining in South Africa.
Fred Aronson, thank you very much indeed. Founding President of the Junior Mining Council. I know you've, of course, heard voices from the industry and from government. The main union at that mine is the Association of Mining and Construction Union, AMCU. Eldrin St. Pierre spoke to them yesterday, and beyond the headline, that interview available for you as a podcast, 26 after 7.
Score big with Diadora South Africa, and your soccer team could soon face your opponents in Diadora gear. Show off your love for the game and gear up for victory. Join the competition now for a chance to win a full soccer team kit, a goalkeeper kit, and accessories. All you have to do is follow at diadora.southafrica on Instagram. Tag your team and teammates in the comment section of our posts. The competition closes on the 30th of November at 2 p.m. T's and C's apply.
# we love it here.
This great initiative is supported by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Is your cash flow tighter than bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1? Navigate the financial gridlock by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash if they can't beat your premium. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Banyana and Player of the Year.
Yeah, they're gearing up now for the final qualification clash with Burkina Faso, but there's 3 players that are in the running for the prestigious CAF Women's Player of the Year award. Andile Dlamini, Thembi Kgatlana and Hilda Magaya are amongst the 10 players nominated for the accolade, with Kgatlana looking to win the award for the second time. She having won it back in 2018 following her sterling year with Banyana. Meanwhile, the keeper, Andile Dlamini, has been nominated for the Goalkeeper of the Year award along with teammate Kaylin Swart. Now, South Africa's bid to host the 2027 Women's World Cup has been withdrawn, and the team are currently in Ivory Coast, where they're set to play against Burkina Faso, first leg of the final round of the CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations, taking place tomorrow. Here's the Banyana shot stopper, Andile Dlamini.
A country that I'm familiar with because we play Champions League here, but it's a different task now, playing for the national team, and it's AFCON qualifiers. And I think that our mentality is on 100 because we want to qualify for AFCON. We're the defending champions, and I believe that for us to win this game, it's going to give us an upper hand when we go back at home, because we also don't want pressure when we go back home.
Now, yesterday saw Stellenbosch FC moving up to 4th position in the DStv Premiership table after a 3-0 win over Cape Town Spurs took place at the DHL Stadium last night. Rugby, Oxenchur may be running for the Springboks lately, but the World Cup winner is determined to maintain the same intensity for his club, the Sharks, in the United Rugby Championship. The Durban-based outfit welcomed the bulk of its box in their only competition win against the Dragons last week, including the influential prop, who says whether playing for club or country, the standards always remain the same.
For me, it's more of a challenge. I mean, for me, obviously, as a player, I want to get better. And I've shown what I can potentially do. And for me, it's about setting that standard. I can't now all of a sudden do less than what I was doing at the World Cup for the Springboks. So it's for me setting that standard and actually keep going the way I've been playing.
And cricket, Glenn Maxwell smashed an unbeaten 104 as Australia pulled off a stunning chase of 223 in the third 2020 international against India to stay alive in the series with a 5-wicket win. Australia, who won the ODI World Cup after beating the host India in the final, still trailed the 5-match series 2-1 with the 4th T20 on Friday. And finally, Tiger Woods says he will continue to play for as long as he thinks he can still win as he prepares to return to professional golf.
I love competing. I love playing. I miss being out here with the guys. I miss the camaraderie and the fraternity atmosphere out here, and the overall banter. But what drives me is I love to compete. There will come a point in time, I haven't come around to it fully yet, that I won't be able to win again. When that day comes, and I'll walk. But now I can walk. I want to say run away, but I'm gonna walk away.
We'll have your sports with the headlines. Top of the hour. I'm Sai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. We'll talk more about the NHI. You'll hear the case for the NHI as part of that conversation in the next little while. It's stage 5 until 8 o'clock, then stage 6. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 7:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, AMCU President Joseph Mathunjwa says mining bosses must be held accountable for fatal incidents in the mining sector. This follows the deaths of 11 mine workers at Shaft 11 of the Impala Platinum mine operation in Rustenburg in the northwest. Eskom has implemented stage 5 rolling blackouts with effect from 5 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight. It says this is because it has insufficient generation capacity. And ArcelorMittal South Africa has cited rising costs due to the country's energy crisis as one of the reasons for its plans to close its long steel operations in Vereeniging. 3,500 people are at risk of losing jobs as the company also complains about weak demand and persistent infrastructure problems. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Stays heavy on Joburg's Mike 1 as you route up from Boysons all the way through to about Oxford Road in the Parktown area. Generally very slow around Four Ways in Bryanston, consecutive suburban areas with load shedding until 8 a.m. Four Ways working its way through a 4-hour load shedding which began at 4 o'clock this morning. Routes like Vic Coppin in the main road, 511, Winnie Mandela, all very slow, particularly coming off the highway, heading through towards Bryanston Drive on Winnie Mandela. That is very slow. Pretoria having a reasonably sort of lighter traffic moment and morning for some reason. Obviously exceptions around some load shedding. Garsfontein and Menlyn very slow. And there is a queue on the R21 at Monument Park today. So if you're on your way up towards Fountain Circle, a bit of extra traffic to get through there. Big delays now leaving Pietermaritzburg on your way to Howick. This truck crash that we've been reporting up by Hilton. A couple of lanes are closed. Traffic backed all the way through, trucks and vehicles all the way through to Town Hill. M7 into Pinetown, dreadfully slow up from Hunt Stepman towards St John's Avenue Bridge territory. Big crash just west of Malalan. If you're driving through Pumalanga, expect an extended delay there between Kalrach and Malalan. Some stop-go controls around that scene and long queues both ways. Cape Town, Tableview, very busy again, particularly Marine Drive, West Coast Road down to Sunset Beach, Otto du Plessis off the beachfront, Bloberg Road around Bayside, all very heavy. And it's the King of the Waves day today. Winds expected to reach about 45 kilometres an hour. So Red Bull have deemed that wind is sufficient to do that part of Marine Drive. On the Bloberg beachfront will be closed at a point. R300 in Cape Town, worth a mention as well. Heavy from Delft up towards the Van Riebeek Road exit of Kales River, and a crash on the N7 north at the N1, causing extra delays heading north from the Goodwood area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, it is Asian markets that are down across the board. The investor focus is on inflation data in Japan. Japan, of course, is the world's third largest economy. The inflation experienced by businesses in Japan increased by 2.3% in October. Up until now, interest rates are low in Japan, and investors fear that interest rates might increase if inflation continues to rise. So in Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei is down 0.1%. China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.3%. And Hong Kong's Hang Seng is also down 1.9%. US markets were mostly up yesterday. And before the US market officially opens later today, the futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each up 0.2%, and our local market, the JSE, was up 0.3% yesterday. The shares of mining companies were the biggest gainers of the day.
And then ShopRite, they got a sentence of 1,700 years. This is for a set of criminals. What happened?
Well, retailers say incidents of shoplifting and full-scale armed robberies at stores are on the rise in South Africa. ShopRite is South Africa's largest retailer operating ShopRite branded stores as well as Checkers and USave. ShopRite says it has dealt a major blow against crime over the past 3 years. The retailer has secured over 1,700 years of prison time, including 24 life sentences for criminals. ShopRite did not specify exactly how many criminals were affected by its efforts to clamp down crime.
And the World Bank giving Eskom the nod for establishing a transmission company. It's taking a long time, this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 years or so in the making. The World Bank is one of Eskom's major lenders. The World Bank has given its approval for the government to launch an Eskom transmission company. This is part of the government's plan to separate Eskom into 3 entities of generation, distribution and transmission. This effort is aimed at promoting private sector investments into the electricity grid and creating a much more efficient Eskom. And so far, the transmission company has been registered with energy regulator NERSA.
Ray Machlaka, thank you. Back, of course, tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, calls coming through about mining safety, patriotism. Let's start with the two-pot retirement system and Pam in the Free State. Pam, hi, good morning.
Hi, Stephen. Stephen, I kindly need you to assist me, or rather other listeners, to engage throughout the day or maybe in some other days. Stephen, we've been having some unclear discussions around the two-pot system where most of us really are confused about this system, where it actually states that the bigger pot will only be accessed only when one is old age, meaning at that age of retirement. And remember, it's an old age time. So does it mean that we're going to have to be stuck in this captured system of employment until those ages and actually occupy this position, Stephen, for the longest while without leaving space for the youth? I mean, where does all this leave the youth and the creation of employment in this country, Stephen? What sense is there in this whole thing? And the current generation, Stephen, has no intentions to work until old age, but intends to resign and open businesses with their monies to gain more economic freedom, Stephen.
But opening a business is working, Pam. Working very hard by everyone I've spoken
and creating employment for others, because you're not going to work alone. Stephen, I mean, to run away from this captured system of employment, at least when you have your own economic freedom, where you are able to run your own business and assist people, it will mean more than being stuck in this system of employment. Sure. So we're just unclear, and I don't see us having a more comprehensive discussion around this two-pot.
Pam, are you still there?
Yes, yes, I'm here, Stephen.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
Where
Look, I mean, no.
Where have you lost me?
No, we've got you now. But Pam, I mean, we've had mediated conversations about this, and frankly, the final kind of way that it's going to work hasn't actually been made clear as far as I know. We're still waiting on some of the details.
Yes, some of the details. We need to bring forward our points and views on this while the discussions are underway before the implementation. Because I'm afraid a lot of people will end up resigning now before the implementation, because people intend to resign at an earlier age. So when it's implemented and their funds are locked in that new two-pot system, then it means they're going to have to resign now as soon as possible.
All right, Pam, thank you. Look, I mean, we'll consider that. We have done a lot on it. I don't know. I mean, people who start businesses tell me it's very tough, and a lot of them fail. And then the people who've taken their money out have nothing, and so that's the concern. But Pam, thank you. So Kolo and Harry Smith, hi, mining safety.
Mr. Stephen, how are you, man?
I'm well, sir. Go for it.
But Stephen, this is it's painful. It's very, very painful to hear this bad news from
Impala Platinum,
the worker. No, it's Stephen. I don't know what these people when they say they're gonna go and what they are going to investigate, because they're going to investigate something that they know. This thing has been reported long time, but they didn't take this thing serious. They wanted this thing to happen before they can say no, or they can go and investigate. That's what we have in South Africa. The companies are not taking the workers seriously, Stephen. I want to tell you the truth. They don't take the workers. The only thing that they know is to say no. The South Africans, they don't want to work. If you complain or you raise something that is not right, the conditions that are not right at the premises where we're working, they're gonna say no. You don't want to work. You understand?
Yeah.
So we are in trouble, Stephen, in South Africa. The owner, they don't take us serious.
All right, Sokola, well, let's wait for the investigation, and if there were any warnings, I don't know if anyone would have seen the sort of mechanism of the mining of the sort of lift cage, but let's see. Sokola from Harrismith, thank you. Chris on the line from Pietermaritzburg. Patriotism, what the president said. Hi.
Hi, yes. I think there's a deeper discussion that must be had, and which is exposed by how the whole issue gets framed. Firstly, being critical of a country does not mean you are not patriotic.
Yeah.
But that's another point. The other point is it exposes that we have not seen the damage the past 30 years has created in South Africa. We have lost national identity from which patriotism derives. So as a country, those are some of the healings that we need to do and to define ourselves as the South Africans. What has happened recently is that we have moved to small corners of our tribes, race, and class. So I'm rather better defined as a poor person or a middle class or rich person before I get defined as a South African. So this issue, I think, firstly, maybe it's one of the issues that should be raised in the next election. That really, one of the things that we must heal is who we are, define ourselves first as South African, and heal the past, the damage that was caused over these years, which is dividing us.
Yeah, no, Chris, I think such an important point. It's about creating a national identity. I mean, people talk about sport doing that, but sport's easy and slightly lazy, I think. It's about more than that, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. And the only time that we recently identified ourselves as South Africans was the recent win by the Boks.
Yeah.
Which shows that there are certain sporting that can really unite us. That element and meaning is there, but there is no leadership.
Yeah. Chris and Pietermaritzburg, thank you. I always find it so interesting when South Africans are outside of the country, when they bump into each other. It almost doesn't matter where in the country they come from. They're very happy to see each other. It's not like that. If Americans see each other or British people see each other, they sort of walk away from each other. But South Africans, I think we're a bit different there. I think there's something in that. Crispin in Durban, hi. It says here you want to talk about defending ideas.
Yeah, so I wanted to challenge, Stephen, a couple of callers from yesterday, one of whom was particularly aggressive in support of Israel.
And this is Adam from Cape Town, yeah.
That was right. But the other caller had said it was very offensive that somebody should be wearing a keffiyeh, the Palestinian scarf. Now, in my mind, for a Jew anywhere in the world to have something that identifies them as Jew is absolutely acceptable, and that should be supported universally. And absolutely the same applies to a Palestinian or somebody who wishes to identify with Palestinians. We've had this case in the U.S. of what looks like a hate crime of 3 students being shot when they were wearing these keffiyehs.
Yeah.
So I think the first point is that siding with people who have a history of oppression is never wrong. And people who sided with black people during apartheid were not being anti-white. They were simply taking a stand against oppression. So that's the way I look at it. But the one particular thing that Adam said, he talks about day 1 and day 0. Now, the implication is that there's no history to this. There was this peace, and suddenly there was this violent attack by Hamas. But that's really nonsense. There are decades and centuries of Jewish history, of histories of the Palestinian Arabs in the area. And for 75 years, there has been a very violent situation, dispossession of land and denial of people's rights to have involvement as citizens of a country. So that is immensely violent, and to pretend that the violence appears only when an oppressed group strikes back, whether, in my case, they did it wrongly, but that's not the main point. That is to obscure what's happening in the situation. I feel about the IDF the way I felt about the South African Defence Force. that this was an inherently oppressive army. It didn't mean that I didn't know people. I even had friends in the South African Defence Force. But as that was an agent of oppression, we have a system of apartheid. I don't know if most South Africans know this, that the illegal occupation in the West Bank by settlers has led to the Israeli authorities creating special roads for them that are denied to Palestinians.
Other people. I did know that, yeah.
That level of apartheid is completely unacceptable. Thank you.
All right, Crispin on the line from Durban. Yeah, strong views, as you know, on all of this. 7:45.
November. So much no in November. Can we just squeeze this last job in? No. Feeling pumped, guys? No. Will we ever make it to December? No. It's November. So, we're charging no fees for 6 months when you sign up for a 10X retirement product in November. No fees, no drama, just results. Speak to a retirement expert today. 10X your future. 10X is a licensed FSP. T's and C's apply.
Dressing up is a winning mentality.
If you look good, you do good.
You feel good too.
Big ups to Polo South Africa
for making the SABC Sport team look good during the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Class and style on another level.
Rolez-vous.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide for its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hajira Sali. The closing date for written submissions is Friday, the 15th of December 2023 at 4:30.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
13 minutes to 8 the time. Rian on the line from Peter Maritzburg. Rian, how's it? Eskom back to stage 5 and stage 6.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I've been moaning about this for many years now. I work in Peter Maritzburg. I've got friends in Durban, so I look at their schedules, and I look at the schedules in the small town that I live. We have at least double the amount of load shedding officially than what the people in Peter Maritzburg or Durban have. Like, for instance, today we will have 10 hours of load shedding. Durban has, specifically Hillcrest has 3 hours. Tomorrow we will have 8 hours of load shedding. Hillcrest will have 4 hours. Now, like last night, we had our load shedding started at 9. It came back at 1. It started again at 3. It came back at 7. Now, I have spoken to Eskom. They say, no, it's got nothing to do with us.
Yeah,
we
it's the
can't regulate.
Yeah,
we can't regulate how the municipalities do it. But how can Eskom customers be regulated to stage 6, but the municipalities, who incidentally don't pay their bill to Eskom, keep on just pumping electricity at a much higher rate than Eskom customers? NERSA, I was told by Eskom I must go to NERSA. NERSA just does not react, and how fair is this? You can't say that this is fair.
Yeah. Rian, there are so many problems with implementing load shedding. I mean, City Power, they say their rosters are working. I know so many people who tell me it's not, and so many WhatsApp groups who tell me it's not. So, Rian, all I can say is I hear your frustration. I share your frustration. I think many people do. I'm afraid I don't know what the answer is, and I don't understand why it's so difficult. I sort of do understand why it's so difficult, but it's something that we need to look at, I think, again, around councils and implementing load shedding, and then how you make it fair. I think that all of that's very important. 11 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, I've just had a look at those Hillcrest schedules. They are very light indeed, according to the caller. Absolutely correct. Roads this morning, four ways in Bryanston in Joburg are being load shed. So coming in on Cedar Road or arriving in from Danefern on Winnemundela, exiting on Vic Coppin through four ways through Pauls off the main road from Lone Hill through Vic Coppin and down into Bryanston. It's all very heavy down there. There will be impacts coming off the N1 highway as well because Winnemundela is so backed up from the highway, moving down towards Bryanston Drive with load shedding. So the N1 north and south backlogging. Heavy pressure out on Malabongwe Drive this morning. Kaya Sand looking very slow. And if you're in from the south, just expect some delays running through Deepcliff Interchange. M1 onto the N12 for a slow trip down to Uncle Charlie's. Old Joburg Road, Centurion to Midrand. Unusually heavy backlogs there. Garsfontein and Menlyn about to wrap up some load shedding, but it's left some delays on Solomon Mishlangu and the Garsfontein Road. Now, if you're driving from Pietermaritzburg up to Howick, heavy backlogs into a truck crash at Hilton. A couple of lanes are closed there. The backlog right through Peterborough and almost down onto Town Hill. So might be an idea to travel north from Pietermaritzburg a little bit later. M7 into Pinetown stays super heavily backed up as well. Good and bad news from Mpumalanga. The crash scene just on the western side of Malelana is being cleared from the N4. That stop-go has been removed, but the Scoomans Kloof section between Montrose N4 and Poplar Creek, that is currently closed due to a crash. So you'll have to go Elands Valley, and you have to go from Montrose down through Godwana and come out at Waterfall Boven as the option that remains open. Cape Town's N1 this morning, Belleville through to city centre quite heavy. A lot of traffic on Marine Drive, West Coast Road still jam-packed out of Tableview all the way to Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Buying a new TV? You'll need a paid-up TV license. Need to check your balance? No sweat at all. You just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 for fast, effective balance inquiries. Secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Richards Bay FC and Stellenbosch FC can already smell the final of the Carlin Knockout Cup. However, only one team will progress. The Natal Rich Boys are confident they will keep their fans delighted, but Stellies believe they have a master plan to grab the graduation certificate to the final. Catch the Carlin Knockout Cup semi-final clash, Richards Bay FC versus Stellenbosch FC, on Saturday 2 December at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
8 minutes to 8. Well, as you know, lots of opposition to the National Health Insurance Bill currently going through the National Council of Provinces. We'll hear from the Deputy Director General in charge of the NHI scheme in just a moment. But first, one of the organisations which is now campaigning against it is the SA Professional Health Collaboration Organisation. Their spokesperson is Casey Makobela. Casey, good morning to you. Why do you oppose the NHI so strongly?
Well, let's say, thank you so much, Stephen. Let us look at what it is. First of all, we support universal health coverage. We are opposing the NHI not because it's the NHI, but we are opposing it in the current form that the bill envisages to be. I'll give you some of the problems that we have. As a simple example, nobody can explain to you what is the budget for the NHI, and even if some numbers are being given out there, they don't know how we actually are going to fund the NHI. That's number one. Number two, as a scheme, you need to be able to define what are the treatments that the population is going to get through the NHI. And we are standing here today, sitting in the NCOP, but they have not even decided what exactly are the actual treatments that are going to go through the NHI. Thirdly, no one has explained, and we have raised these issues, if this is about universal health coverage, how are we going to deal with the rural areas which have no facilities? They don't have professionals, so some of these people have to travel between 4 hours to 8 hours to access a health facility. They need to be registered. They don't have internet. How are we going to deal with these issues? We've made submission on how this should be dealt with. And they have not taken a single step towards looking at these issues. In our mind, they have just literally rubber stamped, or if they pass it it will be a rubber stamp to what the Parliament has decided. As the South African Health Professional Collaboration individually, we have submitted to Parliament before to say, we like where you are going, but here are the suggestions to improve it. Parliament did not take it into consideration. I mean, even the Department of Health itself has once indicated during the consultation process, which quite honestly is a farce, that they wanted to amend Section 33 of the NHI. It has not been taken into consideration. That has not happened.
Casey Makobele, thank you, spokesperson for the SA Health Professional Collaboration. Listening to that is Dr. Nicholas Crisp, Deputy Director General in the National Health Department for the NHI. Dr. Crisp, good morning. You've heard that criticism. Let me start at the beginning. What is the budget for the NHI?
Morning, Stephen. Morning to Casey and to the listeners. So I would immediately ask Casey, what's the budget of the National Health Act? What's the budget of any other piece of legislation? One doesn't start off by writing that into a piece of legislation, because every year Parliament appropriates based on what Parliament has been provided by the National Treasury through the long budget process, which starts in July of every year. So the ultimate answer to the question is, how much money do we have, for which benefits are we able to provide at any point in time? And we have responded to all these questions before, more than once. Even on your show, I've responded to the same questions before. What we do in the public sector is we get set an amount of money. So we know that the total expenditure is 8.5% of GDP. And the question is, what can you do with 8.5% of GDP if you channel and shift the money in a different way as will be provided by this piece of legislation? So we know that we have a different point of departure from how the private sector is familiar with, add 9% every year and then see what you can still do with that and change the benefits. Nobody even knows what their benefits are from a year-to-year basis in the private sector in any of the medical schemes. So they're disingenuous questions, and the answer is very straightforward, that we set the percentage of the budget that is available, and we work towards that budget. Parliament will appropriate an amount every year.
Casey Makobele just asked the question, made the point, and this point was made by Business earlier in the week as well. They said that the Health Committee of the National Council of Provinces made no changes to the bill that came from the National Assembly. They even went as far as saying that some of the proposals came from the Health Department, from your department, and in fact those proposed changes were not included. Is that true? Despite all of the consultation there is supposed to be in the National Council of Provinces, it's exactly the same bill.
Yeah, so Stephen, what happens remember that Parliament is a political process, and they consult the communities, they consult stakeholders, as you heard, including this collaborative have made inputs. The fact that, in a statement made, they did not take into consideration. They did. They even took into consideration several things that we said from the department. And they came back and they've said to us, having considered all the inputs we've received, we don't believe that changing A, B, C, and D will make any improvement to where we are trying to go. And so we are not going to make changes to the bill. And that does not mean they've not considered them. We did say we were prepared to look at the wording of a couple of the clauses to strengthen them, and I was the person who made that presentation in the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, so it's on Hansard. We did then suggest that there might be an opportunity to strengthen them, and the Portfolio Committee's views were that it wouldn't make a difference at this point. And I think that's their prerogative as the politicians to say so. They said that this had all been heard several times. It had all been discussed during the National Assembly's process. It had been discussed in community consultation processes, and they did not feel that now was the time to go back and make amendments. I do want to add that, even the National Health Act was promulgated in 2003, and there are still outstanding clauses in that piece of legislation. And in the process, we know that clauses do get get amended. So over the implementation periods that lie ahead, it's conceivable that some clauses may still be amended.
Dr. Nicholas Crisp, thank you, Deputy Director General for the NHI in the National Health Department. As you know, of course, this is a debate that's been going back and forth, and I imagine will continue to go back and forth for quite some time. You're with SFM leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter. Independent and impartial. This is SFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, union leader calls for accountability against mining bosses for safety issues. And Eskom ramps up load shedding stages. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. Train Union AMCU President Joseph Mathunjwa says the mining bosses must be held accountable for fatal incidents in the mining sector. This follows the death of 11 mine workers at Shaft 11 of the Impala Platinum mine operation in Rustenburg in the northwest. 75 other mine workers were injured, 10 of them seriously. Mathunjwa was speaking on the sidelines of a media briefing yesterday.
AMCO has been calling for the amendment of Mine Health and Safety Act for these company bosses be really accountable, especially to be charged with culpable homicide. Because some of these accidents are repeatable accidents. It's an accident that could have been avoided. Especially this accident, I believe, this mechanical fault of this that led to this accident could have been addressed.
Eskom has implemented stage 5 rolling blackouts with effect from 5 o'clock this morning to 8 o'clock tonight. It says this is because of insufficient generation capacity. The power utility says it needs to further emergency reserves. The spokesperson, Daphne Mukwena, says they will rotate stages 5 and 6 for 4 days.
This pattern of implementing stage 5 load shedding from 5 a.m. until 8 p.m. and stage 6 load shedding from 8 p.m. until 5 a.m. will be repeated daily until Saturday morning.
ArcelorMittal South Africa has cited rising costs due to the country's energy crisis as one of the reasons for its plan to close its long steel operations in Vereeniging. 3,500 people are at risk of losing their jobs as the company also complains about weak demand and persistent infrastructure problems. The company's shares have tumbled nearly 14% after the announcement. ArcelorMittal's long steel unit produces fencing material, rail, rods and bars used in the construction, mining and manufacturing sectors. Police say they've taken in people for questioning following the rape of 3 female security guards during a break-in at the offices of the KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department. A group of armed men stormed the offices on Monday and held 3 male security officers hostage. Provincial Police spokesperson Thenjiswa Ngcobo.
The police worked throughout the night from yesterday till today trying to trace the suspect, and we are following a few leads. We have people who are currently in custody for questioning, and we will have to conduct a formal identity parade, and once that has been done, then we will know whether people who were taken in for questioning are the suspects or not.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says its aid workers in Gaza are terrified that they will see children dying from waterborne diseases. The UNICEF spokesperson James Elder says his colleagues fear that the numbers could mirror those already killed in the conflict. Elder, who has been helping to distribute water, fuel and medicine during the pause in hostilities, says much more aid is needed.
There's an enormous amount to do. It's starting, but as a colleague who is Palestinian said to me, James, we're beginning from a nightmare. Our position now is a nightmare, so you cannot possibly imagine their fear that hostilities and attacks would start again.
And finally, the Smile Foundation and a team of surgeons have literally brought back smiles to the faces of several children at the George Regional Hospital in the Western Cape. The foundation helps disadvantaged children with facial abnormalities such as cleft lips and palate. 18 children will receive the life-changing surgeries this week. The foundation's Tony Zabo says they have helped over 5,000 children countrywide.
Every parent wants their child to just feel and look normal and be able to fit in like their peers. And where we come in is that we help them with psychological support, as well as if they need speech therapy, OT, so they can also, and once they've had their surgery, to be integrated back and to just live a normal childhood.
Recapping your top story, AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa says mining bosses must be held accountable for fatal incidents in the mining sector. This follows the deaths of 11 mine workers at Shaft 11 of the Impala Platinum mine operation in Rustenburg in the northwest. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 8:30.
Luyanda, thank you. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is your cash flow tighter than a squeeze through the Kango Caves? Make your financial journey smoother by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash if they can't beat your premium. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for an Outsurance car insurance quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, rugby, the Blitzbokke are focused on their own game ahead of the Dubai Sevens. And we have Pep Guardiola praising the records that are tumbling for Erling Haaland in the Champions League. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A reminder out in Mpumalanga, the N4 Skimmins Kloof remains closed between the N4 Montrose Junction and Poplar Creek. So if you are in that part of Mpumalanga, look for the Elands Valley section between Mashadadorp and Bombela. You'll go via Elands Valley and Godwana and Waterfall Boven. Very busy in four ways in Bryanston, northern parts of Joburg, as load shedding wraps itself up after an outage. Routes like Cedar Road in from Dainfern, Vic-Cop and across the Pools off in the M1 South, coming off into congestion on Winnie Mandela, remain very slow. Big delays out of Pietermaritzburg. Heading up towards Howick, that's into a truck crash up by Hilton. The back of the queue down towards Town Hill and looking very slow. Cape Town, traffic all over the N7 north out of Goodwood towards Bosmanstown. A crash at Frans Conradi and a crash at the N1, causing delays from Trekker Road and Marine Drive. West Coast Road option staying busy this morning from Sunningdale. Traffic queues all the way down towards Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 8, good morning. Well, lots going on this morning, as you know. You're with SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. We'll talk about number plates in KwaZulu-Natal. The report that I've seen suggests that, in fact, if you live in KZN, you will have to get a new number plate. We'll check on that. I mean, I think that's asking quite a lot of people at the moment. We'll talk also about this claim that a speech the president gave was written, part of it was written, by an artificial intelligence program. Is it ever possible to know? We'll look at that. And then don't forget your mediated conversation today, of course. We'll be looking at corruption in prisons based on what we saw with cell phones. I think such an important story. 20,000 cell phones confiscated in just 6 months in prison. So that to come. And then don't forget, of course, tonight from 7 o'clock, you'll hear the big inaugural lecture, the SFM lecture delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng. You'll be able to hear that, be able to watch it on social media as well. 8 after 8.
SAFM invites you to tune in for our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng.
This is an opportunity to use this privilege for the advancement of the cause of justice, because there is so much more that still needs to be done out there.
The theme for the lecture is Constitutionalism and Upholding the Rule of Law in South Africa, as corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic disposition. The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023, broadcasted live on SAFM 104 to 107 FM, streaming on Facebook, X and YouTube channels from 7 p.m.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Score big with Deodoro South Africa, and your soccer team could soon face your opponents in Deodoro gear. Show off your love for the game and gear up for victory. Join the competition now for a chance to win a full soccer team kit, a goalkeeper kit, and accessories. All you have to do is follow at Deodoro.South Africa on Instagram. Tag your team and teammates in the comment section of our posts. The competition closes on the 30th of November at 2 p.m. T's and C's apply.
Hashtag we love it here.
This great initiative is supported by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market. More than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million rand in luxury travel experiences for two. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app, at your nearest Absa branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. Minnie on the line from Durban. Minnie, hi. You want to talk about the NHI?
Stephen, I would like to be patriotic a little bit and say that this system will make us worse off, both the NHI and this two-part system. Because just my idea of it, if retrenched, meaning that I can't even take whatever is in that second part, it's unbelievable. My mind is just boggled how far worse life is going to be.
I don't know if you're retrenched, what happens. It's not entirely
It
clear.
stays. You only take the third, that 1/3 of your money.
Oh.
The rest of it stays until you supposedly retire.
Sure. I didn't know that. I need to check that. All right. So, Minnie, yeah, I mean, that would make life much harder then.
And I tell you, because I great South Africa, so following my president's advice, great, we are going in the right direction. Thank you.
All right, Minnie on the line.
My president.
Yes, no, I can hear you, Minnie. Thank you. Okay, a little bit of something there, irony perhaps. John and Davidton on the issue of patriotism. Hi, John.
Yeah, patriotism, like respect, is earned, not demanded, like Cyril Ramaphosa does. You go to the township, you go to the places where we stay. People are saying to be a South African is worse than being a foreigner. Foreigners get employed. That is the reality. That's what people see. Even in his Palapala farm, he employed foreigners. Crime, it's worse. The role model of young people in the township are people who steal because they cannot be traced because they are foreigners. So there's a lot of things that Cyril Ramaphosa is not aware. Actually, they say he is worse, and I say I believe that he is worse than Zuma. Cyril Ramaphosa is worse. He keeps on talking things that are sky in the pie in the sky. There's nothing that he does. And he demands people to be patriotic. The situation is worse, Stephen. Stephen, if you come and stay in the township, we'll stay in Davidson, you'll see people, they're in Nyaupe, they're drinking. They say, no, we have given up. Why must we? To be honest, is he aware or is dreaming? He's burying his head in the sand like an ostrich.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I mean, there's a reason why we identified the story and did it, John. I mean, I think we're allowed to be patriotic and critical at the same time. I mean, I think in a way that's sort of the point, really.
Yeah, but you see, you must listen. If I say this is the situation, Stephen, I know you very well. There are some times where we say things you don't believe because you don't see it. But when we indicate things, to say these are the problems. Like there's no party in the government that talks about the real issues like, can we really help young people to get jobs? Why do we allow companies to prefer foreigners more than South Africa? How can I be patriotic like that? Because they all come here. They know that they will be preferred more than South Africa. That is a reality, and you can dispute that. But if I were to take you and say, let's go to one of the taverns, let's sit down, let's hear what people are saying.
Yeah.
Stephen, you don't know what's happening.
Right.
And I really understand because you don't stay with them.
No, sure. John and Davidson, I mean, I'm going to be the first to say, obviously, everyone's life experience is different, and mine is particularly privileged, so I accept that. Of course, we also need to have a job to do, which is to try and put it all together. So, yeah, John and Davidson, thank you.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
14 after 8. Well, the KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department says they're launching a new license numbering system. As I understand it, this is new license plates. It'll come into effect soon, this week. Kwanele Nkalane is the spokesperson for the KZN Transport Department. Kwanele, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to all the SFM listeners.
So you're changing the number plates, is that right?
Absolutely, Stephen. We are changing the number plate for the province, informed by a few reasons. One is that we've got the current discrete numbering system has run out of numbers. We've got areas such as NRP in Richards Bay, NPN in Pinetown, NPS in Port Shepstone that have run out of numbers. Therefore, we are unable to register any more vehicles in those areas. That is why we are now opting to introduce the continuous numbering system, which is aligned with other provinces and which is also aligned with the discussion around the number plate for the country that National DOT is working on. So we feel that this is very important, and we are excited as the province because this is also going to build unity of the province in terms of making sure that we have got one identity as the province and move away from the town number plate where you find that we have got a particular town with its own number plate and its own town with its number plate. So this is quite massive and important for us as the province.
So someone with a number plate will have to change it.
Absolutely. You'll have to change it. What we have done, Stephen, is that you will have to register your vehicle. What we have said is that starting from the 1st of December this week, we are going to be focusing on the first phase with the registration of new vehicles, which means when you are purchasing a car from the 1st of December, it's going to be registered and printed on the new number plate and new numbering system. Secondly, those who are changing vehicle ownership, it's going to be now migrating to the new system. Okay. Thirdly, it's going to be government vehicles. But the second phase will then be starting on the 1st of March, dealing with all vehicle owners in the province. They will be visiting all our registering authorities. We've got about 75 of them, where they will then be doing what we call voluntary migration.
Okay, Kwanele, just hold on a second. So someone who has a number plate now, the number plate in KwaZulu-Natal will be unique. Right? There'll be no other number plate in KwaZulu-Natal with that number plate. So if they've got a number plate already that is unique, why would you need to change it under any circumstance? It's unique. You know who it belongs to. Surely it doesn't have to be changed.
Yes, Stephen, we are addressing the entire system, not only the individual system, but we've said as part of the system that we're introducing, it's going to be two alphas, two numeric, two alphas, the provincial coat of arms.
That's not my point. My point is this: someone's already gone to the trouble to get number plates and all the rest. You're now forcing them to go and spend more money on something just because you want to change the system. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, Stephen. Listen, there are no costs that will be incurred by the motorist there in this particular instance. You will be expected in any case to register your vehicle, and they are still going to continue registering their vehicles, paying the same amount. The only cost that motorists are going to be incurring is the printing of the actual plate, which is about 300 Rand. So that's the only cost. But even in doing that, there are sections where people have bought number plates, like the personalized and the special numbers. We have said to those people they are not going to be paying more. Instead, they will be migrating.
No, Kwanele, my point, I'm afraid, still stands. You've just said it'll cost an extra 350 Rand. Now, if you're already paying license fees, you're already paying for a license disc, which serves no practical purpose whatsoever that I can see. You're basically charging people for something new. And you also said at the beginning that there'll be a national license system, a national license plate. So why are you changing it if the department is going to have a national license plate system in the first place?
Again, Stephen, it's because some of the towns have run out of numbers. Secondly, the discrete numbering system is no longer serving us. That is why we are embarking on the continuous numbering system. Thirdly, the province of KwaZulu-Natal and Western Cape are the only two remaining provinces that have not migrated to the continuous numbering system. Fourthly, this process is also aligned with the discussions that we are having at the national for the South African number plate. So there is not going to be a much shift in terms of that. What we are currently finalizing is the security features at the national level, so that by the time we all migrate.
Okay, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, and you're allowed to be frustrated with me. So just to be clear, you will only have to change number plates once. When they bring in the national number plate system, this will be aligned with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you won't change twice.
No, you won't change twice.
Cornelia, we know that many people drive. We had a caller from this morning from KwaZulu-Natal about it. People drive without number plates at all. Are you going to do anything to change that? There's no point changing the system if people are taking number plates off because they're going drag racing. I mean, we know this happens. It happens all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, it's quite one of the concerns that we are having as the province, the fact that you've got people, mostly it's prevalent on the N3 and the N2 where people they drive without number plates because they want to drive excessively, speeding excessively. And we are tackling that challenge. We have impounded number of vehicles driving with that. And as we are going to the festive season, we will be focusing on some of those issues. But like I say, with the new number plate system, what we are doing is that we have given people 24 months, which is 2 years, to migrate from the current system to the new system. And after that, it's going to be mandatory. We've gazetted it in the government gazette, and we will be making sure that everybody complies. We don't expect anybody to drive around without number plate. Even the new vehicle, they've got a time period where the temporal license will lapse. And we are trying to work with dealerships as well to make sure that even the new vehicle, once it's sold to an individual, we are preparing our system so that it's printed with the number plate and move away from the temporal number plate, because also that creates problems where you find that people keep on extending the temporal number plate, which is illegal.
Cornelia, I really understand this a lot better now. Thank you for answering my questions. I'll try not to be so difficult next time, but I can't promise. Cornelia Nkolani, spokesperson for the KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department.
The beauty, power, elegance and speed of horse racing.
The passion at the heart of horse racing diligence.
Where these magnificent creatures and their skilled jockeys compete for glory.
Racing today.
Catch it live on Mondays to Fridays on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag Horses of Great Character. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Is your cash flow tighter than a squeeze through the Kango Caves? Make your financial journey smoother by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings, or 500 Rand cash if they can't beat your premium. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for an Outsurance car insurance quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
It's been a series of claims over the last few days that a speech delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa, that part of it was actually created by an artificial intelligence program. The presidency says that sections of the speech were in fact written by the Department of Basic Education. But you may find it impossible to know what actually happened in the creation of a speech. Jean Leroux is a digital forensics expert at the DFR lab. Jean, good morning. I really do appreciate the time this morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and thanks for having me on the show.
If we look at this piece of text, is it possible to know if it was written by a human being or by artificial intelligence?
Well, Stephen, the short answer is actually just good plain no. There's a lot of tools that claim to be able to detect whether, a piece of text is generated using ChatGPT or any of the other AI tools. But unfortunately, the accuracy of those tools are highly questionable. The OpenAI, the company that developed ChatGPT, they tried to develop their own tool a few months back, and they ended up removing it from their website simply because it was too inaccurate. You needed to provide it a sample of 1,000 words of a piece of text. And even then, it was only able to correctly identify AI-generated text 1 time out of 4. It had a 26% true positivity rate. which is quite astounding considering this is the company that developed ChatGPT that's only able to detect 1 in 4 instances when it was used.
So then if it's impossible to know, I mean, I imagine for the moment people listening to me probably know that I'm me. Well, I think I'm me. But in fact, any text that you look at, I mean, to try and mark a student essay, for example, whether that student be in grade 8, grade 6, or actually, in fourth year university, I mean, it suddenly becomes impossible to know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and it's been the subject of quite a number of studies, is the fact that, overseas in particular, a lot of the academia uses these type of tools to determine whether students use ChatGPT, for example, to complete their essays. But there's been also a lot of studies showing that these tools are wildly inaccurate. A lot of students are affected by the outcome of these tools, and in a lot of cases, it's in particular non-native English speakers that for some reason get flagged quite extensively by these tools.
So then, are there going to be ways to try and sort of get better at this? I mean, will there be artificial intelligence to catch the artificial intelligence?
I think in time there will be tools that become more accurate and more capable of identifying chat, or AI-generated text. At this stage, I think for every $1 every $10 that's spent developing artificial and particularly generative AI tools, only $1 is spent in developing tools to make them safer and counter the effects of them. So I don't think we'll see it to the same extent and the same level as the tools that create this. In the meantime, I mean, there's no surefire way to determine whether a piece of text is generated using AI or not.
There's so many other elements to all of this. I mean, we're going to see more and more artificial intelligence. We're not going to know sort of what's what. Sometimes I know you can sit down and write a document in maybe the Google Word processor and others. And in fact, it tries to predict what you're going to say. So you don't really know even yourself at the end who wrote it and who didn't. It changes your words. It sort of makes predictions, all sorts of things like that. And yet all of that must be coming from human input in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there's various use cases for these generative AI tools. I mean, a few people that I know use it to do spell checking and grammar checking. If English isn't your first language, then it stands to reason you'd run it through, something like ChatGPT or Bard to just make sure that your grammar and your spelling is correct. That's not very dissimilar to using something like Grammarly. Which is a tool that's also been available for quite some time that does exactly the same thing. It's also based off of a large language model. All of those things, are tools that you can use to improve the content that you put out. My concern is always when you use these tools to generate new content. If you use a tool like this, to generate a speech, to generate a homework assignment, because you're no longer, providing it with novel human input. You're no longer using that tool just to get, to tidy up your grammar and your language. You're actually using this large language model to think for you. You're basically outsourcing your thought processes.
Jean, thank you very much indeed. Jean Leroux from the Digital Forensics DFR Lab. Really appreciate the time.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Blitzbox, or was that Blitzbokker?
Yes, they're ready for a brand new season. They return to action this week, and let me tell you, the Blitzbox are ready. Dubai is a favourite for them. They have won the last 4 events, winning 6 of the last 7 tournaments in the Emirati city. Playmaker Justin Khadal says his team knows what they need to do.
It's good to be back. I think exciting to get on the field again. Always, we've been very successful in the past few years here, so looking forward to doing that again. The coach has been just to try and focus on ourselves and not try to focus on too many other stuff, other teams, too many outside stuff that can distract us. I think it's important to just focus on what our goal is and focus on the processes so that we can reach our goal actually.
Staying with rugby, former All Black skipper Sam Cane believes the New Zealand rugby should take a page out of the Springboks book. Cane feels that New Zealand should loosen its eligibility rules to keep veteran players in the All Blacks pool, while Kane's short stint in Japan won't make him ineligible for All Black selection. The likes of Richie Maunga and Aaron Smith are set to be lost to international duty.
A lot of the Springboks have shown the ability to play in the top League One go back to international rugby fairly quickly and get back and continue playing their best. So I think the challenge for us guys who are on the shorter term deals, who will be returning in the hope of playing international rugby again, is that we play really well here and then we get back, and should we get the opportunity to represent the All Blacks again, that we show that we've improved our games.
That's former All Black skipper Sam Cane. Now soccer, Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag urging his players to stay calm when they face Galatasaray in Rams Park tonight. Another win in the Champions League A fixture will virtually end United's chances of qualifying for the knockout stages. When asked if he feels any added pressure as Man United have failed to score a goal or win in the last 3 games against Galatasaray in Istanbul, ten Hag had this to say.
I think similar answer. It's the past, so tomorrow it's about the future. So we have to make it our game. So it's on us. No, we don't have fair. And if players are good enough, then they are old enough.
Could I just ask one for Bruno, possibly?
And finally, Sports Personalities says the versatile sports facility that has been unveiled in Soweto will increase opportunities for people of any age and sporting ability in the local area to play sport, help themselves to a more active lifestyle. The event happened at Orlando West in Soweto. Football legend Josta Dladla is hoping the facility will help to unearth future stars.
The more we have of this type of situation in ECAS, that we know the kids can play more. And then the more they play, 2 or 3 kids out of that can end up being professionals at the end.
We'll have more sport on SAFM at around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you very much indeed. Corruption in prisons. We know cell phones are in prisons. What about corruption? That's next. You're with SAFM leading the conversation at 8:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, Parliament's Joint Ethics Committee's report has recommended that Police Minister Bheki Cele must apologize for breaching the ethics code of members of the House. This after Cele shouted at an activist during a crime imbizo in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats last year. Trade Union AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa says mining bosses must be held accountable for fatal incidents in the mining sector. This follows the deaths of 11 mine workers at Shaft 11 of the Impala Platinum mine operation in Rustenburg in the northwest. And a report by the UN says Haiti's gang wars have spread from the capital Port-au-Prince to neighboring rural areas, displacing thousands of people and jeopardizing food supplies. The UN says the multinational force for Haiti, which is unelected government requested a year ago, should be deployed as soon as possible. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow coming out of four ways, northern parts of Joburg. Got Winnie Mandela and Leslie. Those traffic lights have been off for a long time, so that's still heavy. And then after load shedding, you've still got a backlog of traffic coming off the N1 highway on Winnie Mandela down to Bryanston Drive. And behind that congestion, the N1 South is heavy just after Rivonia Road. There's some real problems coming off at that Winnie Mandela exit this morning. Malapongwa at Kaya Sand, very slow. That could be traffic light problems. It's queuing both ways through there. If you're on your way to Pretoria, there's been a crash on the N1 at Barakfontein interchange. That is pushing traffic deep back in towards the old Johannesburg road exit. A major delay alert if you're leaving Pietermaritzburg, heading through to Howick. The earlier crash, now breakdown at Hilton, causing a big backlog to Town Hill. If you know what you're doing coming out of Pietermaritzburg, just take the old road. You can come on at Hilton. All of that drama is before the Hilton exit. So if you're on ramp from the old road on to the N3 at Hilton, you'll be just nicely working around that and getting up towards Howick a lot quicker than anybody that's on the N3, that's for sure. Cape Town, the main road at Cork Bay, very slow. There is some load shedding in the South Peninsula area. And the N1 staying very heavy this Wednesday morning. Queues coming from Belleville all the way through to the elevated freeway and the city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodesfield. It's for the bozzers who switch off the geyser when no one's home. And for our clever who get that there's food at home means exactly that. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodesfield Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Dressing up is a winning mentality.
If you look good, you do good.
You feel good too.
Big ups to Polo South Africa
for making the SABC Sport team look good during the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Class and style on another level.
Rolevua.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9. Good morning. Yesterday here on SAFM Sunrise, you heard the Commissioner of Correctional Services, Makgoti Tobakale, answering questions about the huge number of cell phones which have been found in our jails. In just 6 months, over 20,000 cell phones have been confiscated from prisoners. And of course, you know it's illegal to have a cell phone in a prison, and yet it's clear there are thousands of devices in our prisons. It also raises questions around what kind of corruption is happening in our prisons that allows this to happen, and whether Correctional Services is able to deal with these problems. First this morning, you'll hear part of that interview yesterday from the Commissioner of Correctional Services himself, Makgoti Tobakale. Then, how do prisoners actually do it? How do they get cell phones in? Golden Miles Budu is in fact a former prisoner and a prisoners activist. Professor Lucas Munting is an expert on correctional services and reform. He's currently director of the Dilla Omar Institute at the University of the Western Cape. And finally, the spokesperson for the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union POP crew representing correctional services warders, Richard Mamabolo. We start then with our conversation from yesterday with the Commissioner of Correctional Services, Makgoti Tobakale, when I asked him how cell phones were being smuggled in.
Yeah, to start with, we have a population of 151,405 as it stands, inmates. We have a lot of movements in and out of correctional facilities. You have around 56,000 remand detainees. These are inmates that go to court almost on a daily basis. It's a risk to us because as they go to court, they meet people who give them these contrabands. They bring them into correctional facilities. We also have members of the communities, family members who come to visit every week. They also run a risk on our side of bringing these contrabands and trying to pass them on to inmates. Apart from that, in some of our facilities, especially those that are in far-flung areas and close to settlements, you have members of the communities trying to throw these contrabands into our own facilities. And lastly, you have members of the staff that on a daily basis, try to smuggle. You are correct to indicate that we are taking action. So far, we have actually dismissed 11 officials. 7 are on suspension. 6 are on final written warning, and others have been given different sanctions. The total number of officials that have been disciplined thus far is 38, and we have 12 cases that we are investigating.
Okay, so when a prisoner comes back into prison, they've been to court and they come back, right? They don't get searched. I mean, and your walls are very high. People are hoying cell phones over the wall, really.
We search all offenders. I'm saying that there are instances where our security is compromised by, as I indicated, officials that are not honest.
Okay.
And we are disciplining them. Now, when it comes to the issue of the walls and being high and all that, there are correctional facilities that, as I've indicated, they are small, they're in far-flung areas. So those facilities are vulnerable as it stands. Then this is a historical matter. We are rolling out a process of improving security, including building high fences and more high walls. But this is what we have to contend with as it stands.
Okay, but I mean, you say that every prisoner coming back into the prison is searched. They're clearly not searched very well. Even the smallest cell phone would be found. So, I mean, they aren't being searched properly. And they probably aren't being searched properly because the wardens don't want to search them properly. And the wardens don't want to search them properly because, frankly, let me put it to you, they're getting paid not to. Or they're helping out. It can't just be 11 wardens and 20,000 cell phones.
Yeah, I have indicated, Stephen, that we have that problem of some correctional officials not doing their work the way they're supposed to do it. We discover them on a daily basis, and we continue to discipline them. We have metal detectors. We have also body machines where we are able to discover cell phones that are actually, hidden inside the body. We have 17 of these machines. They are very expensive machines to acquire and to maintain, and we have more than 200 correctional facilities in the whole country. Now, this also has to do with the budget of the department, the financial resources that we have for us to be able to deal with this. We are currently looking into a technological solution. We have tested a number of cell phone blocking systems. The problem with those systems is that they interfere with signals, other signals that would be needed in an emergency situation around the settlements. So it is, at the moment, we are testing systems that would not interfere with signals around the settlement. We have sniffer dogs. We also have cell phone detection technology that we are using. We search inside the cells on a daily basis. So the results of our work is the discovery of these 21,000 cell phones. That's the result of the hard work that we're doing.
So, Mr. Commissioner, I mean, you can get localized cell phone jammers. And let me explain from my own personal experience. In the National Assembly chamber, back in, I think it was 2015, you could not make a cell phone call. There was no reception in the main chamber. But from the window of the gents' toilet, just hanging out with my arm, I was able to file radio reports from there. They're incredibly localized. This technology exists. We know it's used by criminals in our country. We know this. You must be able to use it, and you can use it on a very localized basis.
I agree with you, Stephen. But what I'm saying, the technology that we have tested now, we have discovered that in as much as it is able to do what you've just indicated, it also has a risk of interfering with signals that might be needed in emergencies. You might have been able to do that at that time, but the risk still remains. So we want to make it a point that we eliminate the risk to a zero level.
That is the National Commissioner in the Department of Correctional Services, Makoti Tobachale, explaining their point of view there. 19 minutes now to 9. Unfortunately, I've just been told we've not been able to make contact with Richard Mamabolo from Pop Crew this morning. It seems unfortunate, but we're not going to hear from them. Your mediated conversation around corruption in prisons continues. Miles Budu is a former prisoner and a prisoners activist. He joins us now. Miles, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Can you hear me loud and clear?
We can, thank you. How are prisoners getting cell phones into prisons? Are people really throwing them over walls?
You know what, Stephen? This topic and this debate of cell phones in prisons, it is becoming so boring. I end up sometimes wanting to run away and not talk about it, because long before the commissioner came there, long before the Minister of Correctional Services, in their wildest imagination, one day thought that they would be up there in the Department of Correctional Services, the debate of cell phones, legalization, and the cell phones being allowed in prisons is tired. It's been exhausted. I mean, countries that are developed, that are civilized, all over Europe, and in America, they don't have a problem discussing and debating cell phone in and out of prison and call them contraband. There are systems that have been put in place. There are systems that have been used. And the cell phone legislation thing in other countries, I mean, it's so old that they should have by now have an idea what they need to do, because for as long as you have human beings contacting other human beings, the cell phones would forever be there, unless you're going to tell us that correctional officers are going to be replaced by robots. And those robots also will be managed by human beings as well. This is a multi-million-dollar black market business within the Department of Correctional Services, perpetuated, organized, and orchestrated by correctional officers themselves. And there is this denialism that these phones are falling out from heaven when it rains, they are growing on the trees, and they are growing like grass.
Okay, so for you, it's all corruption. It is only prison warders that are allowing this or enabling this to happen.
It's not only the correctional officers, it's also the relatives that talks with the correctional officers who are corrupt, and they say to you, you know what, Miles, we make more money smuggling these gadgets into, they call it contraband, we call it gadgets. We make more money smuggling these gadgets into these institutions than our salaries. And by the way, technology is so advanced, they don't have to go and buy airtime or data. It is just been sent through WhatsApps and so on. So we are in the forefront of fighting that this gadget must be one day legislated, and it must be used for the purpose of education, training, rehabilitation, so that you reintegrate offenders having had contact with their relatives while they are in prison. Those who use it for criminal offenses, they know in other countries what happens with them because technology doesn't lie. They are told that, look, you are not going to walk in with your cell phone from day one in prison. There are processes, there are procedures that you will have to follow. There is a ladder that you will have to climb in order to qualify to be having an access to a cell phone. That is what they're supposed to do 20 years ago when we started this debate, 15 years ago, 18 years ago. You know what, John? This topic of cell phones, and please, let's leave this thing and talk about people who are still languishing in prison and should have been released a long time ago because the system has fallen apart. People who are supposed to be out on parole are still there. Those who are out on parole, they are being distorted and blackmailed. It all depends how deep your pocket is to pay correctional officers monies to keep you out of the system. We've got people, I don't have to mention a person, but I will mention this person because we've been approached by the relative to say, this guy was out on parole, he was arrested illegally, he was brought in front of a court of law, he was acquitted, and immediately was arrested by the parole officers because he's got deep pockets and they extorted him and he's still in prison, and his name is Willie Richard Laverson. He is held hostage at Krugersdorp prison, and the area commissioner knows about it. The provincial commissioner knows about it, the minister knows about it, the national commissioner knows about it, and we will keep on fighting until the system is not only exposed by cell phones, but exposed by correctional officers who has run that department into a format of a Bantustan of a
Okay, Miles. All right, Miles. Would cell phone jammers not work? Wouldn't they fix the problem?
In developed countries, they struggle because most of these prisons are built in residential areas. And once you put that jammer in there, it interferes with the signal of people who are next to the prison, 2 kilometers away from the prison, maybe 5 kilometers away from the prison, you know? And in order to do that, technology has become so advanced that they know exactly what they need to do, how to do it. And the department can't tell me that they don't have money to do research and do the thing the way it's supposed to be done. Okay. Busasa heist, they should have used that money to do a research properly how to let this gadget be used as a gadget for rehabilitation, reintegration, skill development, and let prisoners come out being well connected with their families. Those who commit crimes with this, they are going down, my brother. I'm telling you, because technology doesn't lie.
Miles Bodup, thank you. A prisoners activist, a former prisoner himself. You're with SFM. Your mediated conversation will continue in a moment, Professor Lucas Montang, around how it is that we have this situation developing in our prisons. 13 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow on Joburg's M1 South towards the Winnie Mandela off-ramp. The problem there seems to be the big backlog on Winnie Mandela coming out of four ways through Sloane and down to Bryanston. It looks like lights are out still after load shedding in that area, but it's a very heavily backed up run, leaving four ways and trying to get into that area off the N1 southbound. Crash on the M1 North before Brockfontein interchange. All lanes have been reopened, but there is a queue extending back to the old Joburg Road exit. And if you're on the N1 northbound as well, there's a crash near Olifantsfontein. So that's your first queue before you get into that collision efficiency near the Bruckfontein interchange. Still very heavy leaving Pietermaritzburg up towards Hilton. An earlier crash scene, and now broken down bigger crane truck stuck there just before the Hilton exit. The option to avoid a big backlog leaving PMB would be to hit the old road and come back on at Hilton. That obstruction is before you get to the Hilton exit. Cape Town, N2 inbound between the airport and Hospital Bend stays really busy. The N1 very slow from Belleville all the way through the city centre, and Marine Drive still slow coming out of Tableview through towards Sunset Beach. And just if you're in that Bloberg area today, it's King of the Air, big Red Bull international event. The wind is particularly strong today, so they've got the go-ahead for that. That'll close the Bloberg Beachfront Road Marine Drive from the Circle through to Dolphin Beach Hotel. So if you get yourself diverted around there at some point today, that'll be the reason for it. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market. More than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, experiences for two. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My bank does that. Open yours today in less than...
Contact with you again, just to see if we can continue the conversation. We're talking about cell phones. There we are. Some of these things that happen sometimes. We'll try and continue the conversation for you just to improve the reception. I think he's back now. Professor Munting, sorry about that. You were telling us that correctional services hadn't maintained the Telkom landlines in prisons.
Yes, those are, at least based on the information given to me, they are mostly dysfunctional. So that created an important impetus for a criminal economy around the communication technology in the prison. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. I think we must also acknowledge that technology is changing. There are new things in the market, there are new demands, and we must be aware of that within the context of the rights prisoners are entitled to and the duties of correctional services to enable family contact. And so I think it is high time to rethink the situation around cell phone technology and how one uses that to enable family contact, because there are benefits, again, if prisoners have regular contact with their families. It reduces frustration, the risk of violence inside prison. So one must not have a narrow focus on, yes, it's contraband. That is not going to present us with a more sustainable solution, but rather look at how we can use this technology in future. Access to families and communication is an important management tool in the hands of DCS, but it needs to be managed in a productive way.
It would seem, if you've got so many cell phones in prisons, and we're told by the Commissioner that prisoners are searched when they come in, it would seem almost as if correctional services lost control of our prisons, that they don't actually know what's going on if so many of these devices have been found.
Yes, indeed. I think, and it's been observed in the research, is no matter how good your security hardware is, a system's security stands and falls by the integrity of the staff. If the staff wants to smuggle, engage in illegal activities, the hardware, the scanners and all these things to be bought at great expense from Bosasa is not going to help us, apart from the fact that most of that is indeed dysfunctional as far as I know.
So we know that corruption is a huge problem in correctional services, and I must say it's not just a problem in our correctional services, it's a sort of feature of many societies. Are there strategies that reduce the amount of corruption in prisons?
There are. If we go back into the history, back to the Jali Commission and the SIU investigations, I think there were some important gains made there. They revamped the disciplinary system. But if we look at the figures that were now mentioned by the National Commissioner, where we're talking about less than 40 officials disciplined in connection with cell phone smuggling, then perhaps the disciplinary system needs a bit of a revisit. I think it is important when it comes around corruption and endangering the integrity of the security of the prison system, that sanctions against DCS officials must be swift and hard. People must lose their jobs if they commit crimes such as corruption. because it goes to the heart of the function of the system.
There have been so many stories around Bosasa and correctional services, and before that, the Jolly Commission. I mean, going back a very long time now. When you have some of the Bosasa deals involving correctional services, it would seem to me then that if you can't trust the people at the top, I mean, does that culture sort of seep through to the bottom? Is that part of the issue here around leadership?
I can't say that about the current leadership. I'm not that afraid, but definitely in the past, the example set by the leadership, and that dates back a long time, that was definitely, that filtered through to the lower ranks and had a very, very damaging impact on the integrity of correctional services.
I imagine it's not just as simple as changing the leadership. I mean, it seems to me in some ways, and I'm no expert on this, that actually different facilities, different prisons, might almost have different cultures.
Yes, it definitely is the case. We know of centres where things are well run and they're accountable, and there are good results emanating from those prisons. And in the same management area, you find another centre where things are not running well. And this raises questions as to how that is possible if this is functioning under one national department with one piece of legislation, and there are such differences in performance, because it then raises the question, but who is in control of the prison? Is it the staff? Is it the management? Is it the prisoners? Is it the trade union? I think those are questions that we need to revisit in respect of correctional services.
I mean, there's obviously the famous case of Thabo Bester, which people have been talking about, and the Mangaung Correctional Facility is slightly different to others because it was run by G4S. It was one of only two in the country. But I remember so clearly the Judge Inspector of Prisons, I think I've got the title slightly wrong, Judge Edwin Cameron, saying to us here on SAFM that he had been told that Thabo Bester was a very important person at Mangaung, that he was basically running the show there. Could something like that happen in other places? I mean, this shows you how different the situations in different prisons can be, that a prisoner in this case was seen as a very important person.
Yeah, I mean, I think one must make a distinction between very important people and high-risk prisoners. And with high-risk prisoners, there's definitely a need to pay particular attention, but that is from a security perspective. I think what the Thabo Bester case illustrated is that whether it's run by the private sector or the public sector, prisons are at risk of corruption. And in this case, all indications are that bribes were paid and so on. And this has happened at other facilities as well, run by DCS.
Are there ways, I mean, you talk about the human factor in all of this. It would seem that the structure of prisons, the way that it works, a group of people have power over other people. Does that make them more prone to corruption than other facilities?
I mean, it's in the very inherent nature of prisons that there is an unequal power relationship between management and prisoners. That is unfortunate. That is just the way it is structured. The only way in which one can provide some form of a counterbalance to that is to ensure that officials are accountable and that there's maximum transparency. In the absence of transparency and accountability, we create an almost foolproof recipe for corruption and mismanagement. And that is characteristic of all prisons across the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Lucas Mantung. As you can hear, he's an expert, of course, on prisons. He leads the Reform Initiative, and he is the director of the Dullah Omar Institute. My thanks also to the former prisoner and prisons activist, Miles Budu, and starting us off that clip of the National Commissioner in the Department of Correctional Services, Makgoti Tobachale. All of this, of course, to be podcast for you. Kathy will be with you from 9 o'clock. She's coming in now. There is, of course, the big lecture tonight by the former Chief Justice. We will see you tomorrow. From Mdu, from Stanza, from Paul, myself, look after yourself. You're with SFM, leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Police Minister ordered to apologize to activists, and AMCU calls for action against mining bosses. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. Parliament's Joint Ethics Committee's report has recommended that Police Minister Bheki Cele must apologize for breaching the ethics code for members of the House. This after Cele shouted at an activist during a crime imbizo in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats last year. Cele and the director of Civil Rights Organization Action Society, Ian Cameron, got into a heated exchange during which Cele told Cameron to shut up. The National Assembly adopted the committee's report yesterday. Speaker Nosivio Mapisa-Nqakula.
The recommendation of the report agreed to by this House is that the member enter an apology in the House for his conduct towards Mr. Ian Cameron, the Director of Community Safety and Action Society.